All right, everybody, welcome to Fox News and Now as we are covering a very fluid situation in Lower Manhattan where the New York Police Department responding to reports of a shooting near the Lower Manhattan High School. I'm joined now by our very own Troy Hayden, where, a very fluid situation going on here.
Yeah, it looks like it could be a collision and a shooting, and we were getting multiple reports. It's still very early, but we've gotten reports that somebody in a truck was running people down, and then when they stopped, this is according to an eyewitness of a media report I just saw from a credible source there in Manhattan, that he got pinned after he hit people in the truck and then got out and started shooting.
Wow.
So that makes you think, it makes you at least worry that this may not be some random accident, or it may not be some sort of road rage. It may be somebody with a different sort of intent.
Wow. And the New York Police Department putting out on Twitter not too long ago, currently there is one person in custody. They're saying no others outstanding. All information is preliminary as the investigation is ongoing. But you can see the chopper up there, still trying to find where this scene is at right now. We're also working to get some ground shots for you available. And when we do get that, of course, we'll bring that to you here.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to see it from that helicopter. We have another map over here that shows us. So it's actually off the river there on the other side of those buildings. So the chopper's not going to be able, unless they can just barely squeak in between here, maybe they can get a view of it here. But it's about a block off the river is where this happened, on Chambers Street and West, if you're familiar at all. This is Lower Manhattan, not too far away from the World Trade Center site. So again, the fact that we're talking about Lower Manhattan, the fact that we're talking about somebody possibly running people down and then getting out with weapons, again, makes you say, hey, what's going on here?
Absolutely. And think about the time that this is happening, too. This happened probably about, 3:30? Now it's going on 4 o'clock there. So right in the heart, almost getting to rush hour, where people are getting out of work or getting to start to make their commute. And now of all times, you really have to be on high alert for pretty much anything that could happen.
Well, I mean, the one thing that we've done a pretty good job of since 9/11 is cracking down on large-scale attacks. It's very fortunate we haven't had another one here in our country. But what we've seen, especially in Europe, I mean, just recently, are these attacks by vehicle, right? With the trucks and the different people mowing into crowds. Now, this doesn't appear to be that case. I've heard reports between 4 and 6 people were injured here. And then we also had reports of multiple fatalities, and I haven't seen that backed up again. So again, this is just very early information coming in.
And on our Fox News channel, it says that the witness said suspect emerged from a vehicle screaming and firing what appeared to be from a gun.
And that would back up the witness that I saw talking, where the person driving hit people, then the truck that they were in became wedged behind either another vehicle or something else, couldn't move anymore, and that's when they jumped out and started shooting. So not only you're talking about somebody who may have been trying to inflict damage with a truck or a vehicle, but then somebody who was also armed and had another way of hurting people.
And we've seen this unfortunately play out on a much larger scale in Nice, France, when that horrible truck just ran through people. But now, just another threat emerging now that the person in that vehicle would seem to have a gun then as well.
I'm seeing multiple different outlets showing different videos, and one of the videos I see right now are a series of bicycles laying down and looking crushed. Does that look like a street to you?
Yes.
It does?
Yep.
Okay, I was wondering if it was a street or a path.
Yeah.
But you've got bikes down and they appear to be crushed. I saw some video of what appeared to be a younger boy with an older man, and both of them were sharing a stretcher. I don't know if they were, a father-son or something along those lines. So, you hate to see something like this, and, people just out enjoying their day or getting from A to B and then getting caught up in this whole thing.
Absolutely, and it looks like
Fox News Channel has that young boy getting wheeled off right now.
Oh, wow.
With the man. That's a little better look at the scene. I don't know if that's the actual scene of the crash, but yeah, see how they're kind of peeking around the building there. Like I said, they're about a block off the river.
All right, so now we have some ground shots available to us. Let's go there. You're seeing now a ground shot from this situation.
That doesn't tell us much.
No, that doesn't at all. But
Here's what it tells me, though. I mean, I look at the posture of police officers quite a bit, and those police officers didn't appear to be in tactical mode at all.
No,
you know, they're not looking for anybody else right now, and they think they've got the person that they need to get, at least at this scene.
So what it seems like, yeah, because the New York Police Department tweeted out says that one person is in custody, and they didn't think anyone else was outstanding.
Right, and you know, all the witness accounts that I've seen, again, and it looks like it was a Home Depot truck that was involved. You know those trucks that you can rent at Home Depot for like $20 an hour? I don't know what they cost in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I mean, they may be more.
Probably 50.
But you know, you can rent a truck for $20 an hour and get your whatever you buy plywood, or if you buy long 2x4s or something that can't fit in your SUV or your car, you can rent this truck and get it home. Well, it's one of those trucks. It's like a semi-flatbed, but just a regular sized pickup. Still a heavy vehicle that could do a lot of damage, and that appears to be what this person was driving.
And obviously, with the state of world that we live in, when you see a situation like this, now everyone's thinking, okay, was this terrorism, or was this somebody not from this country? Was it somebody that was homegrown? So obviously, full investigation will be happening, but.
Oh, they're saying it's a bike path now. Yeah, that did kind of look like a bike path to me. So, and I'm trying to look and see where maybe Chambers Street actually turns into a bike path. It's hard to see where that would be, but there were a number of bikes that were laying on their sides with damage that looked like they had been run over. Those bikes. So, you know, you're talking about terrorism. Well, is that Mayor de Blasio that's driving?
Yeah, the Mayor de Blasio is coming to the scene there. Yeah. So maybe pretty soon we'll have a press conference or some sort of statement from the governor, the mayor there. Mayor de Blasio.
Yeah, and you know, that's one thing we've seen over the years with especially things that happen in New York City, that the mayor is very involved in whatever kind of news conference they have over something like this. But you know, again, the one picture that I keep looking at, and it's that one right there. I'm sorry we can't share all these pictures with you. We're not allowed to stream a lot of stuff, but looking at that picture with all those bicycles laying down, and then just going to show somebody else, it almost looks like, for a time, the driver of this truck went onto a bike path of sorts, but it's a wide bike path. Yes. It almost looks like a small street.
Yeah. I mean, it almost looks like a paved trail. Where, unfortunately, we wish we could show you the ground shots that we're also getting, but there are some restrictions on there. So
this video you're seeing here, the actual scene, if you go straight back to that brick building you're looking at there, and if you went right down that street right there is West Street that we're looking at. So if you went down West Street until it hit the very next block, that's Chambers, and that's, there you go. So go out a little bit so everybody can see. So keep going out, like shrink down. So you see the little river right there on the left. So we're looking at you have a pointer here?
Yep.
So right here is that brick building we're looking at in that live shot. And so you just go to the right, and then this is the scene right here. And I'm wondering if this may be kind of that bike path, even though they call it Chambers. You know, maybe it's closed to traffic. Yes. But I can't see where else it would be. But this is the brick building. So the helicopter's kind of out in kind of more in this area, but up farther out, and is shooting back like this. So that's why I can't get around and see it down here.
Let's take it back out to the aerials right now. And
so there it is, kind of looking back more. There's that brick building I was talking about. So now they're getting closer and closer to the scene. Maybe they are kind of moving over a little bit so they can see a little bit more of where this happened. So we're getting closer now.
Now you're seeing all the rescue vehicles there, and wow, what a turnout. And like we just said, the Mayor de Blasio we saw coming out to the scene. So many were hoping to maybe get some sort of statement, or maybe from the police as well. So,
I remember it was a few months ago that we had somebody do something similar to this, but there was no gun involved in Times Square. Remember that?
Yes.
So they hit some people. They ran up onto one of those barricades that they have there just to keep people, because Times Square is, pedestrian only, a lot of it. And so the car ran up right on top of it, but it turned out it looked like it was a simple DUI. Right?
Yes.
But with obviously other charges after they ran people down. But that was not a terrorist act. So I mean, again, very initial reports are saying that they're looking at all possibilities of what this may be behind this.
I know, and
it's the gun that gets me.
Well, yeah, then that makes it really, really deliberate. I mean, and then too, to go onto the bike path as well. I mean, now you're just trying to mow down as many people, it would seem, that you can. And think about it, it looks like a beautiful day as well in New York. We're getting our
a level 2 cut-in on the shooting. Countdown is underway now. Level 2 cut-in on the New York City shooting.
Can we stream that?
Yeah, we can take the level 2.
Oh, good.
So I'm just going to get us another feed in here in just a moment.
Okay, so just to take you behind the curtain a little bit, a level 2 is what is provided to us by a news channel. You want to go ahead and put that up there?
Yep,
That'd
now
be good.
we're going to go right to Shepard Smith Fox News Channel.
In the afternoon, we now believe a vehicle has traveled in a bicycle lane down the West Side Highway in New York City on or about Houston Street down to Chambers Street. That would be the area of Stuyvesant High School. For those of you across the country, it would be an area not far from the World Trade Center, a very heavily traveled area. This would be a map of that area right along the Hudson River. You see Stuyvesant High School mentioned there, if no other reason, but that's a very famous high school as a reference. Right along the West Side Highway in New York City is a very famous bicycle path. It's been there before bicycles were popular for modes of travel to and from work in New York City. And the bicycle path is on the left-hand side of your screen now, and you see victims down on the ground. We're looking north now. To the right is the West Side Highway. Travels all along the river. You see a New York City taxi there. The camera pans around. Now we're looking south. The river's to the right, the highway's to the left, and there are people who have been mowed down by a vehicle. We have a picture of that vehicle. It is a white pickup truck. You see it there. Where the police officer is pointing. That's a Home Depot logo, and you see a $19 rental strip there. Here's what police have told us. A man was in some sort of a dispute. This is the early reporting from the authorities that two people in trucks got into some sort of dispute. We do know that at some point this Home Depot truck, which is not from Home Depot, it was a rental, the driver of that truck got on the bicycle path instead of on the highway and began mowing down pedestrians and bicyclists. Mostly commuter bikes. There are people who ride up and down this highway for exercise, certainly, but it is largely also used for travel to and from work in New York City. Though on the West Side Highway, it's really more of an exercise area. Be that as it may, on a Tuesday afternoon like this one, with the sun out, chilly, but and windy, but not horrible, there could be hundreds of people, there could be thousands of people riding their bicycles up and down this thing. It goes all the way up and down the city on the West Side Highway, and it's protected. There is a median. It has its own traffic signals. You know when you can stop and when you go, just as a bicyclist. And now it appears that this is a very, very serious incident. Initial reports were at least 2 people had been killed and unknown number injured by this vehicle. NBC4, the flagship station of the National Broadcasting Company of NBC News, NBC4 is reporting 4 dead and 15 injured. NBC6 is now reporting 6 dead and 15 injured. Also, NY1, which is the local 24-hour cable channel, which is formerly of Time Warner Cable, and now that has been bought by Spectrum. So it's Spectrum NY1 Cable News. It is the morning news, is the 24-hour news channel of New York City. It is also reporting, citing multiple police sources, 6 are dead in Lower Manhattan. Sources say the vehicle ran over people in the bike path. The man drove the rental truck for several blocks down the West Side bike path, according to police sources. They say it was a, quote, deliberate action, unquote. Multiple killed and wounded. The man was then shot by police and is expected to survive. So driving on the bike path, we are now told, was not an accident. Driving on the bike path was a deliberate action. We're told at least 6 people are dead and 15 more are injured. We have a picture, we have shown you the picture of the Home Depot rental truck. It is not a Home Depot employee. This is a truck that was rented from Home Depot by a person, presumably to carry something somewhere, and instead, following what police describe as a dispute around Houston Street in Lower Manhattan and the West Side Highway, the vehicle got not on the highway, but on the bike path lane, and began to mow down pedestrians and bicyclists. And the latest reporting into Fox News Channel is 6 people are dead and 15 people are injured, and authorities say this was a deliberate act. This leads us to question whether this was someone who was badly deranged in some way, was on the influence of something and made horrible decisions, or if this person was angry with someone and targeted someone who might have been on that bike path and then hit others, or if this could be a terrorist act. We have no reports of this being a terrorist act. We have nothing from police regarding terrorism or the mayor's office. The reporting of the police department and the mayor's office is that this incident is over, that there is no more danger to anyone, that this was a lone actor, that lone actor has been taken into custody after being at least shot at by police. Some reports indicate he was shot by police, but he is expected to survive under all circumstances. And now we're left to question, with police saying this was a deliberate act, was this a deliberate act against the people, designed to terrorize and murder with some sort of organized group's inspiration or training or otherwise? Or was this just some nut job or somebody angry? We don't know. It is too early to speculate. I'm telling you the possibilities, not what I think happened, for I do not know. The reporting is that the FBI is now assisting, joining the JTTF. The JTTF is the Joint Terrorism Task Force stationed in New York City, which works with the feds. The Joint Terrorism Task Force often investigates crime scenes as if they are terror attacks, trying to either rule that out or rule that in. Was what was described at the time as an attack in Times Square. This driver of a vehicle went into a pedestrian area in Times Square around TKTS. If you've been to New York City, you know it. Around the Broadway area, and drove over pedestrians, and everyone in New York City was thinking, oh my God, another terrorist attack. It was not. It was a highly intoxicated man who turned the wrong way, apparently didn't know what he was doing, is to this day in custody, but he did not have designs against people. He was just messed up. For those who were involved and those who were terrorized along the way, it certainly does not matter. But when assessing whether we the people have become the target, generally speaking, of someone who was upset about something about the nation and generally wanted to terrorize, new information from Rick Leventhal has just arrived. Is that in Outlook or my Gmail? I'm told it is in both. It has not yet arrived. According to Rick, the perp was shot twice. The suspect is not dead. The suspect may have gotten on the bike path in the West 40s on the West Side Highway and may have hit people there. And I have resisted telling you the following thing. There is a place called Pier 26, which is along the West Side Highway. This highway stretches all the way up the Hudson River.
All right, we are continuing to show you live aerials here of this multiple casualty situation. We heard from Shep Smith not too long ago where we're hearing those reports, maybe up to 6 people dead, 15 injured.
Well, we haven't been able to confirm that. It doesn't sound like Fox News was able to confirm that either. So he was talking about the reporting of the NBC owned and operated station there in New York, and I have no doubt, or no reason to doubt their reporting, but that hasn't been confirmed by us at Fox News. But we can just put it this way, that other media outlets are reporting multiple fatalities. The highest number I heard was 6. 6 people killed and 15 people injured. One thing that does seem to be consistent, and that is that the driver of this truck, and this is new from the last time we were talking, it seems like it's been confirmed by witnesses that he was driving on this bike path for a while. And going through and hitting people on this bike path.
Wow.
And we saw the video. As a matter of fact, we can see it in different broadcasts right now. But there are multiple bicycles down on the ground and crushed along this bike path.
Yeah, you got to figure not only just bikers on there, obviously, but also runners, walkers, and as you take a look, it looks like a great day out there, a fall afternoon. As you can see, it was a little bit crisp out, but a lot of people want to get out and do some exercise as well.
Right, and you're right along the Hudson River there,
Yeah.
and that's what we're seeing. And it appears to be, and as Shepard mentioned, it's a bike path that's been around for many, many, many years. And Manhattan is so crowded, and there aren't that many areas to get out kind of into nature.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would assume that this is one of them. As close as you can get on that small island. And it's ended in a strange way. But to me, it comes down to the question of. We keep hearing about a fight, an altercation of some sort, but it just seems odd that there would be okay, first of all, think about the series of events. So you have somebody who goes to a Home Depot. I mean, I guess it's possible he could have stolen the truck.
Yes.
But otherwise, you have somebody going to a Home Depot and renting a $20 an hour truck and then gets involved in something like this and also has weapons on them. So they go off the road, hit multiple people. It looks like it was at least one child that I saw being wheeled away. The child was conscious, though, and appeared to be, it's hard to tell, but not seriously wounded. And then all of a sudden, at the end of it, with guns. And now we have some reporting from the Associated Press from another witness who said the man who was driving the truck ran away from the scene and apparently could have been shot by, he said, a heavy-set man running after him and taken into custody. So. And as we mentioned earlier, the New York City police are saying that they're not looking for anybody else. They have the one person they think who's behind this, at least in the immediate area, in custody.
A very still fluid situation here as, you just don't know what could come next. And we're hoping for an update pretty soon. We want to thank our very own Troy Hayden for stopping by and giving the insight. All right, everyone. Joining me now is our very own John Hook, and we're taking a look at these live aerials right now. John, looks like another terrible situation there in New York City.
Yeah, and again, Mike, we're always trying to use some caution on what we know and what we don't know. And we know, I think the latest casualty count is 6 people dead. That's coming from multiple sources. So if he rolled down a bike path in a rented truck or van, as we've understood, you can get in all kinds of speculation about what this might be, but it's obviously a deliberate act because he rolled for many blocks doing this and then was firing a weapon. It's not an accident.
No, not at all. And then you think about people on a bike path, not only bikers, but maybe runners, walkers, even strollers that could be with moms, and I mean, it looks like a beautiful day there, afternoon.
I mean, schools letting out.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah. So you.
I will say, Mike, I was in Manhattan about a month ago with my family, and we were down in this area, this exact area, because we obviously went to the Freedom Tower and took all that in. And I was amazed how many pedestrian barricades there are to keep cars from getting up on the sidewalk, particularly around Times Square. The police presence in Times Square is remarkable. There are cops everywhere. There are barricades everywhere.
Wow.
They are really making sure, or had made sure, that this kind of thing couldn't happen. But if you go down a bike path, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. You're going to cause a lot of harm. And, I hate to get back to this because we've talked about it before. I really think we're entering a phase that is similar to the way Israelis live, where I don't want to say they accept a certain level of carnage because of the tensions where they are situated as a nation. We're not in that situation, but we have threats from within. And so, I hate to say it, but we saw Las Vegas a couple of months ago, not even.
Not even.
We've got this, and I do wonder, and it concerns me greatly, that we're coming to, I don't want to say accept, but we're no longer shocked when we see these images. I really think people are like, here we go again. They have come to somewhat expect this, which is really sad in America because we really never lived like that before. And after 9/11, everything changed.
It's true. It really did after 9/11, and you're right. Think about when we were right after 9/11, how pretty much everybody came together after those, especially those first couple of days right after 9/11, and then slowly as the years went on, I feel like we've gotten away from that again, where we don't want to feel as secure as we maybe can be or should be.
Or we've come to accept that we're not that secure, that things can happen. And it could be, unfortunately now, and I think people in the back of their minds, it could be a shopping mall, it could be a movie theater, it could be a high school. We've seen terror incidents, either domestic or, external, happen in this way. At a casino, at a concert, outside of a casino.
Yes.
I mean, the possibilities, unfortunately, are endless for people with diabolical intentions to do harm.
That's very true. Very true. As we continue to take a look at these live aerials and look at the police response with the fire teams as well.
Can you take Matrox? Can you take that image?
Yes, I could take that. So
can we zoom in?
Yep, we could zoom in.
Okay, so we could show where this happened.
Yeah.
Okay, we're heading down toward Chambers Street, and there's a
the
park
incident
there. Yeah. This is a heavy pedestrian area down here. You're heading down toward Battery Park and getting down toward the Trade Center, which is now the Freedom Tower, but the old Trade Center footprints where the two towers once stood that are now reflecting pools. You're getting down into lower Manhattan at the tip, bottom tip, southern tip of Manhattan. This is where this is. And you can see that I don't see necessarily the pedestrian barricades there. There probably are some. Yeah, you can see a couple of them right there.
Let's zoom in just a little bit more for people.
Yeah, you can see they've got barricades. As we're zooming in, you're going to see, if we take it.
There you go.
Yeah. You can see those. They've got these, they look like half lamp posts. They've got those up. They've got cement. Round blockades. They've got entire block walls that they have erected in Times Square to keep vehicles from getting up on sidewalks. This is something NYPD has been very cognizant of because of what's happened in Paris, what's happened in England, what's happened in Germany. You've had incidents like this around the globe where people, are resorting to using cars as weapons, if in fact that's what we think it is. Now we're getting a shot of the rental truck here that was involved in this.
Yeah, and I wish we could take. We can't. We're still not able to take that feed right now. And it looks like we're going to be getting.
Is that a Home Depot?
Yes. Yeah,
truck?
It's a Home Depot truck that you could rent for. What is it, like 20 an hour that you can do? And
well, they're going to very quickly piece together who rented it. They're going to very quickly piece together who this person was, and then they'll start going through their cell phone, their computers, and trying to figure out what this person was up to in the days and weeks and months leading up to this.
And for a terror expert, that
and when we say terror, let's be broad here, because this could be just some white guy doing this, right? Who's lost it for whatever reason.
Yes.
So we don't know the nexus of it. We don't know who was doing this. We just know that we've seen some of this, and we saw it in Las Vegas with a guy of means, Stephen Paddock, who opened fire on a crowd of concert goers. I mean, we've seen this, and sometimes it is tied to quote unquote terrorism in the way that we traditionally think of it as Al Qaeda or ISIS inspired. This could be strictly just somebody who lost it for whatever reason and chose to do this. Well, that's what they will sort out. I can tell you the FBI's on the scene.
Oh, yeah.
So that tells you something, that they are at least looking at that possibility, which of course you should, because this fits the profile of other similar situations that we've seen across the globe.
Yeah, when you think about it, what was it, Nice, France, where 100 people got mowed down, and
unfortunately, it's easy to do.
Yeah, now do you think those experts, though, that would just be so hard to try to combat, though?
I don't know
how would you?
The only way is with these barricades. Every few hundred yards or few hundred feet, where you've got barricades that won't allow a car access to a scene like that. That's a double-edged thing, though. Remember, because sometimes if you had an incident in that area, a different kind of incident. In the past, you might have emergency vehicles use some of those thoroughfares to gain access to victims. If you had a traffic jam, for instance, if you couldn't get through, you might use that. Now they've blocked that artery, which you're taking some things back, but you're giving up some things in the process when you do that.
And we continue to take a live look here. We're waiting for a press conference any moment now from the police, as well as Mayor de Blasio. We'll continue to wait for that as we give you these aerials. We're seeing media reports, highest that we've seen, 6 people dead, 15 hurt after that vehicle collided with so many people there near the World Trade Center site. And wow.
I've been following this a little bit today, but reset for me, if you will. What time did this happen, Mike? How long ago?
It was about 12:30 our time, so 3:30 out on the East Coast. So that we first got the word of it, and then unfortunately, as it continues to go on, those numbers continue to rise, and wow, yeah,
and witnesses are describing really a chaotic, horrible scene. Obviously, you've got one guy telling ABC New York, everybody was running, everything was happening so fast. The truck hit multiple people on a bike path on the West Side Highway before it crashed into a school bus at Chambers and West Streets.
Wow.
Near Stuyvesant High School.
Very.
He said he saw the truck driver hit several people before crashing into a few cars. The driver got out of the vehicle and opened fire. That's an eyewitness account. We'll have to see, Mike, what this is all about and who was behind this. And depending on who was behind it, then you will start getting the politicians involved.
Yes. But don't you think, though, it doesn't even matter who it is. If they affect a way of life, isn't that terrorism, though? If they want to, strike violence on someone,
right,
in a mass casualty way,
right,
it's very scary.
Yeah, and to the victims, it probably doesn't matter a lot.
No, it doesn't. Or the family.
Who was behind it and what the motive is. They're trying to make sure their loved ones, if they're in the hospital right now, are going to make it.
Yeah.
Apparently, the victims, many of them were taken to Bellevue, which is a trauma level 1 hospital. There you see some aftermath and still pictures, and the Home Depot truck right there, kind of a little mini flatbed that you would load plants or planting material or bricks or stuff if you were doing a job around the house and rented a truck and needed to move stuff.
And then you got to think, I wonder how fast the rate of speed was too, that he was just clipping.
Well, by the looks of those bicycles, at a pretty good rate of speed. Those bicycles were mangled.
Yeah.
You have to be doing probably 35, 40 at least to do that kind of damage.
And can you just imagine the amount of, how much scared the people must have been?
Yeah.
On
this
bike
went on
path.
for several blocks, apparently. This guy drove down several blocks.
And then getting out, and now we're hearing reports of then using a gun and...
Right. Opening fire after it came to a stop. We should say that the person allegedly behind this is in custody with a gunshot wound apparently to the leg. So this person who did this will survive, and because of that, they will probably extract a lot of information.
Yes.
And learn quite a bit about this.
Interesting.
And the images we're showing right now, if this is terrorism in the traditional sense that we think of it, this is exactly what they want.
Yeah.
They want these images.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
You see
They want to strike.
NYPD chopper flying by there.
Yeah, so a lot of...
I know there's been also concern today about, they've had some other calls in New York City that size. You're getting other, traffic incidents, and they're trying to make sure none of this is related.
Yes.
So there you see that thoroughfare, which is really a bike path and a jogging path right in the middle between two streets. You can see if a car gets on there or a truck gets on there, it's they could cause a lot of damage. So they thought it through, I'm sure, and identified this as a potential spot to take out people.
And another factor you got to think about too is this weekend is the big New York City Marathon. So think about the high alert that they're going to be. They were already probably on high alert, but then to be now this.
Well, and the pressure on police in New York City, because this is still, let's face it, New York City continues in the minds. If we're talking about terrorism, international kinds of seeds of terrorism. Let's listen in on this person if we can.
We're still trying to get some ground shots for us to see if we could get a press briefing waiting.
So anyway, if we're talking about terrorism with seeds or connections to international terrorism, talking about ISIS, Al Qaeda, if that's what this is going to be about, again, we know that New York City has been a fixation and it's the biggest city in the country and one of the biggest cities in the world.
Yes.
So the terrorists remain fixated on New York. They look at that as kind of the place that we want to do damage. And so, it's always a concern for New York City PD. It's just there you see, great shot of Lower Manhattan. That's right down by the Trade Center. Now, is that our picture live?
Yes.
Now we're spinning across the river to New Jersey. So. They're zooming into a Home Depot where this truck might have been rented. Is that what we're looking at there?
That's what it appears to be right now. So we do know that was a Home Depot truck.
So you cross into Lower Manhattan using what bridge?
It would be tunnels.
Tunnels.
Yeah.
The Holland Tunnel?
Yeah, Lincoln Tunnel.
Lincoln Tunnel, Holland Tunnel. Go across and there you go. You're right into Manhattan from New Jersey. So we're speculating here, but this Home Depot's getting a lot of attention. And it was a Home Depot truck that was rented that we know. So you see the picture of Home Depot. Some reporters or people who are putting out information may know where this truck was rented already.
And even though we don't know exactly who is behind this or if it was just a lone, wolf attack, really, but you have to think, though, it seems like these soft targets more are becoming the norm for these kind of situations now, where they're not going for maybe the big kind of a attack, but maybe these soft targets where it's really hard to defend against something like that.
Well, and it's easier to carry out, it's easier to plan,
Yep.
it's easier to execute in a tight time frame. You don't need a lot of expertise to do this.
No.
You can have low-grade people who are on the fringes causing, incredible harm.
So the very latest that we have here for you folks is 6 dead, up to 15 people injured. We're hopefully those number of injured don't convert over to somebody that passed away here. But you can see maybe here in the background, we're still getting updates from our Fox News channel out in New York, and hopefully we'll be able to get a ground shot here for you as well. I know we've been stuck on this aerials here for quite some time. So we're going to try to get some ground shots as well.
Think about the level of personnel it takes to deal with a scene like this, and then while
Yes.
this is going on, protecting the city at large.
Very true.
Look
Don.
at how many emergency personnel are on the scene there, from the FBI to NYPD. And then you think about the resources you need to keep the rest of the city safe.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is just one thing where you got to. What I'm going to do, John, is take our Fox 5 affiliate right there in New York.
Okay.
Since we have some of this
Yeah,
ground
that's good.
shot.
They're on the ground. This will be good information.
Let's go to some of that right now.
Go to my phone and keep them people wondering what was happening, because that area, for anybody that lived through 9/11, those years immediately following, as you could see the devastation that had happened, and then see the rebuilding, and then see the many different measures that the police department, under Ray Kelly at that time, was taking, basically to say, listen, we have to fortify this area because this area could be a target again. And they've succeeded, so well in the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
With really creating a thriving.
Lisa.
You have the residents of Battery Park City. You have a very thriving downtown and adjacent traffic.
All right, I think we lost Lisa's phone there. Obviously, service is an issue as we continue to work through this. One update, this is the first bit of good news we've gotten a little bit, is that the AP has adjusted the numbers downward as far as the number of hurt. So they're now saying 6 dead, 9 hurt. That's down from 15 hurt, which was the last number. So that's one bit of good news, and there does not seem to be much of that, unfortunately, to go around. And just scanning Twitter right now, this is definitely being picked up by people outside of New York as well. People, Ivanka Trump tweeting her heartbreaking news coming out of New York City, praying for victims. The Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, he's also tweeting about this. Lawmakers in state and out. So this is definitely something that is on everyone's radar now, as this is investigated as potentially an act of terrorism. Certainly a horrible act, regardless of what the final determination is, as we take a look in on the scene. This is one of the vehicles. We heard it was a rental truck that was actually involved in the incident, so it's unclear if that's just maybe another car that got caught up in the chaos ensuing.
Yeah, well, as you were saying, a lot of people have been tweeting about this. I've been getting texts as I've been on set from people all over the country wondering what in the world is going on in New York City. Let's go down into the newsroom to our Teresa Priolo, who has been monitoring very closely. People are saying, Teresa.
Derry, I'll just call your attention over here to where it says New York Trends. We're talking about how much people are tweeting about this, the response that it's seeing on social media. In just this area, Manhattan, Tribeca, West Side Highway, World Trade Center, and West Street are all trending right now. 14,000 tweets about the World Trade Center, 11,000 tweets about the West Side Highway, some 7,000 tweets about Tribeca. Let me take you to some video now and show you the scene. This one is from Nico, showing that there was a shooting in Lower Manhattan. West Side Highway is shut down. Good perspective from one of the high-rise buildings there, and just you can see the massive police presence. This is the overpass that we've been seeing time and again, and all of the police vehicles right there. We'll go to the next one for you. This is a picture that I thought was quite interesting. Inside Stuyvesant High School, you have the mayor right there, you have the governor, You have the police chief over just to the side of the mayor. You have a number of top detectives within the NYPD all being briefed on the situation. And again, this is just a closer look at this. Again, Commissioner O'Neill tweeted this one out, the mayor, the governor, and others just basically getting whatever information they can, just briefed on the situation in Lower Manhattan. Joint agency media briefing at NYPD soon. Show you some more video of what is happening downtown. This is from the perspective of Whole Foods.
All right, so we were just checking in from our affiliate there, Fox 5 in New York City. Now back out live here on News Now as we continue to show you these aerials. We did get an update while we were taking that Fox 5, now knowing that 9 are injured, not 15. So now 9 injured, 6 dead in this attack, and we do not know all the details right now, but we are learning that media sources out there are saying the FBI at this moment is treating the attack as terrorism. So we'll see what exactly the next situation here is. It's very fluid at this time as we continue to take these live aerials for you in Manhattan. You're watching News Now.
You want to take?
I mean, this is really just turning out to be an incredible event that, I mean, just has really caught everybody.
We do have some new video, too, that's just in. This is apparently right after the suspect was shot and brought into custody. So that's the rental truck on the left there that we've been talking about.
Which is said to have been rented by Home Depot. They confirmed it. Home Depot confirmed it was their truck.
The suspect being taken into custody right there after apparently getting out.
Yeah, let's re-rack this.
Guns, real or toy or otherwise.
Obviously, somebody's
down a bunch of bicyclists.
Shooting this from inside. And, you know, a caveat here, this video is just coming into us. So
that's the suspect. I believe that's the guy they took into custody right there, right before he was brought into custody. You can see, looks like there's police on foot sort of chasing him around in the traffic after he got out of the vehicle. This is pretty hair-raising video shot just as this situation was reaching a resolution as far as the suspect being brought into custody. Pretty intense images here captured on someone's cell phone. That's now the suspect being brought into custody after apparently being shot by the NYPD.
He is alive, though.
Alive and being questioned as we speak. We're about 20 minutes away now from the official update. We know that the mayor, the governor, and the police commissioner are all in the same room. Yeah, look at this. This is the suspect again, running through traffic the wrong way with, as we were told, with gun, whether it was a toy gun or a real gun. You can see a pretty menacing scene. Police right there as they take him into custody. There was, you know, some sort of crash or something. It looks like maybe other cars might have been in a crash because of the chaos having nothing to do with the rental
Well, there
truck.
are a lot of reports on the AP is quoting a lot of people who are on the scene saying what they saw. Taxis, and you see, look at all the yellow taxis around there. Uber drivers. I mean, this is the West Side Highway, after all. There are lots and lots of cars around that are going to be able to see and witness all of this. As I was watching that video, it eerily reminded me of the San Bernardino shooting and when that whole thing went down on the street and the suspect jumping out of the car. And I mean, it was that sort of mayhem. We've been hearing all afternoon that there were lots of witnesses and people recounting what they saw. This is obviously being shot from either an office or a residence.
Is that the footbridge we've been looking at? I wonder, or is that
I couldn't tell you from this, but somebody's pointing, obviously, to the whole thing going down. And slowly but slowly, we're going to see a lot of these videos. As Lisa was telling us, you know, there's a lot of surveillance in this particular area as a result of what happened on 9/11. so they are very well prepared. If there's any area where they'll be able to see who was involved, if there was more than one person involved, this is that particular area.
That was a great point made by Lisa. This is the most heavily videotaped area of anywhere in New York City, obviously in the shadows of the World Trade Center.
And it's also, you know, an entry point in and out of Manhattan along the West Side Highway. You know, people head up there going to the tunnels, both ways, actually.
Sure, right.
So,
easy
and you can loop around Manhattan. These are the steps over here by the Borough Manhattan Community
All right, and then
College.
at the bottom of your screen, that's some important info. FDR Drive closed southbound, south of 34th Street. The FDR Drive is open northbound, and on the other side of the city, the West Side Highway is closed south of 14th Street. Obviously, that's still on lockdown. They're still trying to make sure that this was the extent of what took place here. They were searching the truck, that rental truck, to make sure there weren't any bombs, devices, anything like that would go off after the scene. As of right now, Schmidt sources, they believe there were 2 devices inside, but they appear to have been fake or hoax devices, so hopefully that continues to be the situation. And here you go. I mean, you can tell what happened right here. This is a vehicle right across the bike lane on the West Side Highway. That was must have been a horrible scene. This all took place around a little after 3 o'clock when the person in that rental truck just started mowing down people on the bikes.
Incredibly compelling video that we saw come in of the whole scene, the confrontation with the police officers and the suspect go down. Eventually, the suspect, we're told, was shot. The suspect is alive. We don't have any information about the suspect at this point other than the fact that they were shot and they are alive. We want to go to our Lisa Evers, who has deep sources within the NYPD and has been speaking to lots of people, as we are about 18 minutes away from a briefing by Police Commissioner O'Neill. Lisa, have you learned anything new?
Well, Gary, we're on our way. We're still on our way to the to police headquarters for that briefing to get the latest. But I can tell you that in terms of the speed of the investigation, the speed of the coordination, that's something that we saw after the Chelsea bombing.
Right.
How quickly, within 50 hours, they were able to piece together a rather complicated scenario, 2 different devices, 2 locations in Manhattan, a location in New Jersey, and they were able to coordinate and find out about that and put those details together. But because I think, you know, as we look outside here out the window of the truck, it's, you know, this is a beautiful Halloween evening, and that neighborhood, especially in the last 5 years, has become a very thriving community for families. So you can imagine kids coming out of school, doing their little neighborhood trick-or-treating, going into buildings. You have the workers who are there towards the end of the trading day for all the people who work in the financial industries, which are still very, very heavily located there. You have all the commuters coming through the PATH train on their way out to New Jersey, the Oculus Shopping Center, which draws tourists from all over the world because of the shops that they have there and because of this, you know, the spectacle of it, the unusual nature of it. The 9/11 memorial. I mean, let's keep in mind also that this happened. You know, this was not very far away from the 9/11 memorial itself. So I think that the speed with which they're handling the investigation, they're trying to coordinate all the information, which we hope to have details on it as soon as, you know, very, very, very soon, and we'll as soon as we can confirm things. But you know, the speed at which they're going to be working, I don't think we can overestimate how fast and how many people they have on this, not just from the NYPD, but from the other agencies like the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And I think that also, you know, for the people in the neighborhood, too, I mean, it's very much a family-oriented place. So
absolutely,
basically, you know, you have a lot of people that were out there on the sidewalk, on the street. It's a gorgeous day. It's Halloween. It's in the afternoon. And the shock of it and the number of people is probably even more than what it would have been like, you know, the other day when it was raining.
Oh, absolutely, Lisa. And, you know, you make so many great points as we're looking at a live video of a white car somewhat involved. We don't know at this point exactly how. There could have been more than one scene we were hearing that there was. But, you know, Lisa, you say, I mean, that area, Battery Park City, a wonderful, wonderful family community. And we all have to keep in mind that, you know, there are a couple of schools over there on that side, but most people cross over the highway to get back home. A lot of people go to schools, you know, the kids and college and all that, they cross over the highway. And this was happening just after 3 this afternoon. So this mayhem is going down, and lots of people are getting out of school. As we were saying, Stuyvesant High School on lockdown, the community college on lockdown, the grocery stores, and it is a gorgeous day, as we were saying. The other thing that you talk about, which is so important, is after 9/11, they established that ring of steel, you know, where everything is so heavily surveillanced in that area. Big center of banking in that area. And then also... Tremendous. Absolutely, Lisa. And then the lessons of the takeaway, you know, added to this, the Chelsea bombing and what we saw go down there with the homemade pressure cookers. So there are so many takeaways from what we've 9/11 that get applied to this day, plus the fact of the rental truck issues, which we've seen happen recently abroad in Europe.
And no, and absolutely, Darian, and I mean, obviously, our condolences go out to the people, the families, and the loved ones of those who lost their lives. You know, I'm sure everybody is joining me in praying for the people who were injured in this. But I think also we have to understand, you mentioned the speed of that investigation after the Chelsea bombing, and I think one of the things that, you know, that I learned from the stories that we've done on the counterterrorism units and the various types of investigations that they've done is that they after every incident, they're learning, they're evolving, they're stepping their game up, so to speak. And I think, I'm sure right now there are investigators, whether they're from the FBI, the NYPD, probably the NYPD Intel unit and the counterterrorism unit, combing through various video feeds from this afternoon from anywhere in that area, trying to piece together where this guy came from. Look at the location. What tunnel did he come out of? Was there another car? Did somebody get out of the car before he started driving south on the West Side Highway? These are the types of questions, and of course the devices that have been mentioned, and any type of weapons that may have been used, which we're still waiting for confirmation on, and possibly who this suspect is that the NYPD says they have in custody. So there's a lot of questions about it, but I think also, you know, I don't think it's an understatement to say, or overstatement to say, that for the investigators, they have been down this road before, and there is a full court press going on, I'm quite sure right now, with them trying to find out the extent of this, what happened, and just what the motivation was, what any connections are that this individual who was responsible for this had, where did that truck come from, where was it rented from, and many other details. But you know, when we see the speed with which they were able to put together who the suspect was, right, with the Chelsea bombing, and also the heroism of those Linden police.
All right, everybody, welcome to News Now. I'm joined by Carrie Lake here as we're just continuing to take this just awful situation there in New York City now.
You know what's just so horrifying about it? It's looking more like a terrorist attack.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, it's
yes.
sounding like it is. Mm-hmm. And this is an area that so many of us, if you've traveled to New York, have been to. This is that area, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it, that is right where so much happened on 9/11.
Yeah. Yes.
Steps away from the World Trade Center near Battery Park. You see the bicycles we've been showing you that are down, and you think somebody on that bike was probably killed by this madman. And these are those bikes that you can rent when you're going around town. You go to New York, you're enjoying New York City, and to have this happen, it is absolutely deplorable what has happened. We've got a perpetrator who rented a truck, a $20 truck rental from Home Depot, and went to this park area where many people walk, jog, stroll, enjoy New York in the shadow of what used to be the World Trade Center, and now, of course, Freedom Tower in Lower Manhattan. And then to have some madman take them out and just drive right into them. It's just unconscionable. So we've got Fox Business, and of course now we're hearing many more reports coming out saying this was not an accident. It wasn't somebody who had a heart problem or an issue. This was somebody who, with the intent, went down to that area to hurt or kill people.
Yeah, now we're taking some live look of some ground shots there. We just saw another person being taken to an ambulance
look
there.
Look at this, a little boy there.
I know,
was he with his mom? Was he with his dad? And were they hurt?
Yeah.
You have so many questions when you see video like that. You just, it tears your heart out.
Yeah, what's so sad about this, too, when you think about a bike path there. Not only is there people on their bikes, obviously, but you got people maybe running, walking, jogging, could be with their babies.
It's near Stuyvesant High School, a well-known high school in New York City. It is the time of day where you're going to see children out and about.
Yeah.
It's still light out. You've got kids who are maybe walking home with mom and dad who've met them. It's just heart-wrenching. This is along the West Side Highway, if you're familiar with New York City, near Battery Park, right on that bike path there that has been so beautified really since 9/11. And Battery Park was a critical spot where, you saw so many videos on 9/11. It was right in the, as I said, the shadow of the World Trade Center, and people kind of walking dazed and confused and covered in dust after 9/11. This lunatic rammed a rental truck right into a crowd and did not stop until he was forced to stop.
Wow, yes.
Got out, and Rick Leventhal with Fox News reporting that witnesses say he shouted Allahu Akbar, which, is an obvious indication this was an act of terrorism. Obviously, there will need to be an investigation, but that is what Rick Leventhal of Fox News has reported, and also many witnesses have reported he came out screaming out of the truck and had what appeared to be two weapons that were probably imitation weapons, and maybe this was in an effort for him to be shot. We don't know.
Yeah.
But this is an area that's very popular with locals. It's also very popular with tourists. So many tourists go down to see that part. They want to see the rebuilding. They want to see, America strong and what has happened in the area of World Trade Center since 9/11, and it's become a tourist spot down there.
And we're taking this live look right now of the ground shot. I'm joined by Carrie Lake as we're continuing to wait for an update where law enforcement as well as the mayor de Blasio will be giving a press conference very shortly here. We're learning maybe within the next 5 to 10 minutes here, but pretty clear indication. You can see even FBI sources saying that this is looks to be all but everything with terrorism.
6 people are dead, 9 are hurt. They say as many as 15 people at one point were hurt, but I think what they did was they combined those number with the deceased and the hurt.
Yes.
That's a lot of people to take out on a bike path, because you think about how people on a bike path, they're not all clustered together.
Yes.
So I don't know how long this man was able to drive this vehicle, this rented vehicle. Right here is a shot of Mayor de Blasio. You can see him walking.
Yeah, so we're taking that there. There was the mayor coming onto the scene of the horrible incident.
One of the things I just heard reported on Fox Business News was that they were starting to evacuate some businesses in Lower Manhattan. Precautionary. I mean, you just never know how one of these plays out. Is this somebody acting alone? Is this somebody acting in conjunction with another person? So they have started to evacuate some of the businesses. Now we're getting to the point where it's after hours. It's getting, a little bit later. I believe it is, if I'm right.
Should be about 5:10 there, yeah. Just
so,
10 after 5.
People starting to leave early, and you just hope there's no other part 2 to this attack. But they're trying to take precautions. They don't know what the full plan was of this man who rammed a truck into this crowd.
Yes.
So they've got to take precautions, and they have started to evacuate, according to some reports, some businesses in that area.
Yeah, and I was talking to, before you came up here, I was talking to John Hook, and we were talking about just how hard this is to defend when you think about these soft targets where you're not looking at a building per se or in an event that's happening, but these things where it's just a bike path. It's just how many bike paths are there in this country? And take a look.
You've seen this video?
Yeah,
this is the video, witness video of the guy being brought down by police.
Yeah, take a look at there, where they're going to keep looping it back there. But you can see this is cell phone video, and you can imagine just, everybody these days has the cell phone ready to go.
You talked about it, and is this the guy right here?
Yeah, that is the...
Well, then you wonder, does he have a suicide vest on? I mean, this is the maniac. You see the weapons in his hands. This is the maniac who took out 6 lives today. It just is, it makes you so angry, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it really does. And seeing that, and then, and just think about it. They do these kind of attacks in places where a lot of people can, think about, where
it's horrible. It's like
a bike path, a movie theater, a concert.
And it starts to chip away at people's sense of security, sense of freedom, that maybe I shouldn't go there, maybe I should stay in. And we saw this in Las Vegas with that nut who murdered so many people there. You start to just kind of go, maybe we'll stay in, maybe we won't go there. But a bike path, this isn't even a...
No.
It's not like like in Nice, France, where they went along during a celebration along a bike path. This was average every day. People just said, hey, I think I'll take a stroll. I think I'll go for a jog right now.
Definitely.
And boom, their lives have been snuffed out by this.
And think about just how many bike paths there are in America. I mean, there's thousands.
Well, in this terrorist movement, they have these printouts and magazines they put out, and they give tips on how to become a terrorist and how to easily take out lives. And it's kind of like they're looking for things that aren't bombs on planes. They're looking for easier ways.
Yep.
And obviously their message is getting out to their followers. And this is an example of it taking place in New York City on a beautiful afternoon, fall afternoon, in the shadow of what used to be the World Trade Center. And you can see right there the Freedom Tower.
There's the Freedom Tower right there, yeah.
Well, New York is it's a city filled with strong people, and they will not let this get them down. They will continue to be as, mindful of their safety as possible. But I tell you what, it's a punch in the gut when you see something like this going down.
Yeah, really, really is. But you're right. The New Yorkers, the most resilient kind right there. They always know how to bounce back, but obviously you don't even have to be a New Yorker to feel some kind of pain right now. This is just a horrible time. And here's what we're also monitoring right now. We are waiting for that NYPD presser to begin any moment right now. So we'll be getting a lot of updates there.
We're looking at some pictures from the ground. Is this what we're airing right now, Mike?
No, let's show them a little bit of our sister station there, Fox 5 in New York.
Can you pause it real quick?
The shooting in the aftermath. Dan.
Yeah, Steve. We just talked to somebody who was here in the moments after this happened and actually saw this individual walking on the street with a gun in hand. This particular person took video of that, but he didn't actually see any of the shots fired. I spoke to a separate person who was working at the pier across from the West Side Highway, got out of work. He saw that white pickup truck driving south. He saw it strike several of those pedestrians. He said he walked over. He saw people laying on the ground, and in a few minutes, that's when he heard the gunshots. This is obviously a busy area in Lower Manhattan. There's a school that's right nearby. There are several businesses here. Of course, the bike lanes that are there and a busy pedestrian walkway up and down the West Side Highway. We spoke to several people out here in the last 2 hours. In a word, this is shocking. Hear what they had to say.
I was coming out of work. I'm getting ready to cross the street. I hear a big commotion. It was a different commotion. You hear ladies screaming. So when I go and I look, I see a pickup truck, a white pickup truck going down the bike path. For some reason, it drew me to walk that way. When I went that way, I seen 2 gentlemen expired in the street, in the bike path.
My sister, she was coming out of school, and a man crashed a van into the side of a school bus, and the man got out of the van. And he started firing. He had weapons on him, and he started firing.
I saw in the intersection he's still running with a gun, and then suddenly I heard the gunshots, like 5-6 gunshots. Then we all went down because we didn't know which part the gunshots coming, so we were all scared.
And you can hear a wide range of people reacting to this incident. In the last 15 minutes or so, we saw at least 3 or 4 FBI agents who arrived on scene here. Think about it. There are 3 different scenes, 3 different incidents that people are looking at here. They're looking not only at the pedestrians who were struck by the pickup, but also possibly this pickup striking a school bus, and then there are the gunshots that were fired. So a few different actual crime scenes that they have to look at, trying to piece together exactly what happened. Of course, they would like to know.
Don't yell at me. I live here.
People obviously very stressed out in Lower Manhattan. This is obviously a very stressful situation. We'll send it back to you guys.
Interesting is in New York City, it's hard sometimes to get a live signal out because of all the tall buildings. So we've got to. But look at this scene, Mike. I mean, all of the law enforcement, first responders, this city has more than any other city. And it doesn't, I mean, they can get there after the fact. But when you have some lunatic who is dead set on killing, I mean, how do you stop it? How do you stop it? I think people are scratching their head going, you got to get to the ideology behind it and try to go about it that way.
No, yeah.
And that's a long-term project.
Yeah, it really is, and you can see everyone being diverted there now. Like we were saying earlier, 5 o'clock now, rush hour, even adding into that mix.
Well, then I'm sure they're worried about the subways. They want to make sure this is not part of a larger, planned, coordinated terror attack.
Yeah, what would happen if there's not maybe 3 other people waiting out?
Yeah, or that the subways have been, something's been planted. It's just, it puts the city on such high alert going, is this it? Is it one person? Is this the worst of it? And it is bad, but or do we have more coming? Is there a secondary plan? You just hope it's just one person. Now, I'm not sure, did they kill the suspect or just take him in?
Right now, just taken in.
Okay, so maybe we can get some information out of him.
Yeah, so that's what we're waiting on right now, everyone. You can take a look. We're taking a live look at the New York Police Department headquarters, looking for a press conference there any moment. But as you can imagine, still very fluid situation there in New York City.
So let me read some of these reports that I'm getting from the AP. Now, this was at 4 p.m. Police and witnesses say the motorist, which was the suspected terrorist who was in the Home Depot rental truck, drove into a busy bicycle path near the World Trade Center. So came off the road, came up off the road and drove into that bicycle path and struck and killed several people. We know that 6 are dead, 9 hurt is the latest. And then emerged from the vehicle screaming, and witnesses say screaming Allahu Akbar, and then kind of ran around, and the police were able to bring him down. There were gunshots fired, from what we hear. And the suspect got out of the vehicle, displayed imitation firearms, and was shot by police. We don't know if he was how badly injured he was, but he is in custody. A man who was riding in an Uber along the West Side Highway near the World Trade Center says he saw several bleeding people on the ground after that truck hit several people. The truck also had collided with a small bus. You probably saw that in some of the video. It was a small bus and one other vehicle.
Wow, so take a look as you continue to look out here. A lot of fire response, police response, all the medical teams there that have to help in this situation is all in that area right now.
I don't know if we've seen it, but one of the shots I saw a little bit earlier was of just mangled bicycles. And these are those rental bikes. You know, a lot of people in New York ride bikes. They don't necessarily own them. They kind of rent them. You can just put the credit card in and grab a bike and drive it around, then drop it off at another spot. And so many of those bikes, you wonder, were they tourists there? Were they visiting New York, having maybe the time of their life, enjoying the city when they were, driven over by this crazy man behind the wheel who was intent on killing people?
Yeah.
Were they locals who were out for a stroll, running some errands? You just start to wonder about the innocents who were taken in, whose lives were taken out in an act like this, really in an area that we were all watching after 9/11. It was, it's Battery Park. It's that area of the West Side, right in Lower Manhattan, right next to where the World Trade Centers went down. And you can see, of course, from everywhere pretty much, you can see the Freedom Tower, but it's not far away. And I don't know, are we showing this video right now, Mike?
Let's see, we could jump on that here for you.
This is the video of the suspect. Mike's about to pull up here, and this was taken from somebody.
And is undoubtedly being questioned at.
And he runs out of the car. He's taken down by police. Word is he was shot. There he is. There's the man who is responsible for this. And he was taken down by police, apparently shot. I don't know if we show the air. He's got, they said imitation weapons.
All right, Carrie, and we are going to go now live right now to the New York Police Department
let's take a listen.
For their update. Let's take that live.
Good afternoon, everybody. Steve, we good? Yes, sir. All right. Just keep in mind, this incident occurred a little more than 2 hours ago, so all the information that we're giving you right now is preliminary and subject to change. After I speak, you're going to hear from Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio. Bill Sweeney, from the Assistant Director in charge of the New York FBI office, is standing up here with me, too. We have members of my executive staff. We have Cy Vance and members of the state police. First, I just want to say that today there was a loss of innocent life in Lower Manhattan. The dead and injured were just going about their days, heading home from work or from school, or enjoying the afternoon sun on bicycles. This is a tragedy of the greatest magnitude for many people, for many families here in New York City and beyond today. I want to commend the response of our NYPD officer that was on post near the location who stopped the carnage moments after it began. Also, the work of the first responders, including the fire department and EMS personnel, surely helped save additional lives. As I said, I'll give more of a chronology in a couple minutes, but right now I'd like to introduce Mayor de Blasio.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's a very painful day in our city. Horrible tragedy on the West Side. Let me be clear that based on the information we have at this moment, this was an act of terror, and a particularly cowardly act of terror aimed at innocent civilians, aimed at people going about their lives who had no idea of what was about to hit them. We, at this moment, based on the information we have, we know of 8 innocent people who have lost their lives and over a dozen more injured. We know that this action was intended to break our spirit, but we also know New Yorkers are strong, New Yorkers are resilient, and our spirit will never be moved by an act of violence, an act meant to intimidate us. We have been tested before as a city very near the site of today's tragedy, and New Yorkers do not give in the face of these kinds of actions. We'll respond as we always do. We will be undeterred. And I want to thank everyone at the NYPD, all our first responders, for their extraordinary efforts in the midst of this tragedy, starting with the officer who stopped this tragedy from continuing, all of the first responders who came to the aid of those who were injured. Investigation is underway to get all the facts, and what we'll tell you today, of course, will be preliminary. But we know we will get down to the bottom of what happened. I want to ask all New Yorkers, all Americans, to keep the families of those lost in your thoughts and prayers. They will need our support. And I want to ask all New Yorkers to be vigilant. We know it's Halloween night, and we know in the days ahead people will be uneasy. We ask all New Yorkers to live by the idea: if you see something, say something, tell an officer immediately. If you see anything unusual, anything that worries you, be vigilant. And know that there will be extensive additional employments of NYPD officers this evening and throughout the days ahead. We will also keep you posted as this investigation continues and as the NYPD gains more information. Governor Cuomo.
Thank you. First, our thoughts and prayers are with those New Yorkers who we lost today. It reminds us all how precious life is They left the house this morning. They were enjoying the beautiful west side of Manhattan on a beautiful fall day, and they're not going to be returning home. And that shock and that pain is going to be very real. And our thoughts and our prayers are with all of them. Our first responders did an extraordinary job. The NYPD, the FDNY, the FBI, the New York State Police, EMS. We have the finest security on the globe. And to see them in action today proved that once again. The new terrorist tactic, which they've called for publicly, are these lone wolves who commit an act of terror. This is all very preliminary. It's only been a couple of hours, but at this point there's no evidence to suggest a wider plot or a wider scheme. But the actions of one individual who meant to cause pain and harm and probably death and the resulting terror. And that was the purpose. We will be vigilant. More police everywhere. You'll see them in the airport. You'll see them in the tunnels. It's not because there's any evidence of any ongoing threat or any additional threat. It is just out of vigilance and out of caution. And the truth is, New York is an international symbol of freedom and democracy. That's what we are, and we are proud of it. That also makes us a target for those people who oppose those concepts. And we've lived with this before. We felt the pain before. We feel the pain today. But we go forward together, and we go forward stronger than ever. We're not going to let them win. And if we change our lives, we contort ourselves to them, then they win and we lose. We'll go about our business. Again, there's no ongoing threat. There's no evidence of that at this time. So there's no reason to have any undue anxiety. You will see more security forces, but that's only because it's an abundance of caution and not a signal of anything else. And there'll be continued investigation, and justice will be done. But again, to those we lost, they are in our thoughts and our prayers. To the first responders, thank you, thank you, thank you for the job you do. You put your life on the line every day, and you do it better than anyone else. And to New Yorkers, be New Yorkers and live your life. And don't let them change us or deter us in any manner, shape, or form. Amen. Thank you.
Thanks, Governor Cuomo. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But as I said, I'm going to go through the chronology here, and I know when I'm done, I'm going to have a lot of questions, but we're not going to go too deep into it. It's only 2 hours. And after I get done with the chronology, Dan Nigro is going to talk about the injuries. All right, so at 3:05 p.m., a male driving a rented Home Depot pickup truck entered the West Side Highway bicycle path at Houston Street, began driving southbound, striking a number of pedestrians and bicyclists along the route. At Chambers Street, the truck collided with a school bus, injuring 2 adults and 2 children. After the collision, the driver of the truck, a 29-year-old male, exited the vehicle brandishing 2 handguns. A uniformed police officer assigned to the 1st Precinct confronted the subject and shot him in the abdomen. The subject was wounded and transported to a local hospital. A paintball gun and a pellet gun were recovered at the scene. The subject's identity is not being released at this time, pending further investigation. At this point, there are 8 fatalities reported in connection with this incident. In addition, several people have been injured, and Commissioner Nigro from our fire department will discuss that. Dan?
Thank you, Jim. As Police Commissioner said, six of the people died. They were pronounced at the scene. between Houston Street and Chambers Street. They were all males. 2 others were transported in traumatic arrest and were pronounced at the hospital. We also transported 11 people, all with serious, but at this moment not life-threatening injuries. The injuries are what you may expect as a truck went at high speed down that bicycle path and struck bicyclists and pedestrians. There may be more injuries as people self-evacuated, and we will determine that later as we do our survey. But that's the patient count and the deaths as we know it now.
All right, at this point, we're going to take some questions. Miles, hold on, Miles.
This is something that John Noah talks about all the time. Terror attacks or these kind of things where it's with rented truck. This is something that you guys do in the field all the time. You talk with these truck companies. Have you guys talked to Home Depot recently about this kind of being vigilant about this?
Hey, John, you want to talk about the program a little bit?
Sure.
So as you know, through the SHIELD program, we do a very wide outreach. We have just under 20,000 members in the private sector. After ISIS, Rumiyah magazine came out with the issue just about 2 years ago around this time of year, suggesting car attacks. You'll recall one of the targets they suggested was the Thanksgiving Day parade. We went and did extensive outreach to the truck rental business. We visited over 148 truck rental locations in this area, the obvious ones, U-Haul, Ryder, Home Depot, etc., and talked about suspicious indicators, ways to come forward. After attacks on the German Christmas market, after Nice, we repeated those visits 2 more times, either by making telephonic contact, email, or going back to the same places. So the industry has had a high level of awareness on this matter from the NYPD.
John, is there, or Commissioner, is there any indication that the suspect is a lone wolf, perhaps radicalized here in America, or any indication of a wider international?
And it's way too early to discuss that. I mean, this just happened 2 hours ago, and that's, of course, part of our investigation.
You've heard about some police activity up at 26.
Initially, we thought it might have been, but it turned out not to be. Yep.
You had a residence in New York or any?
This is all part of the investigation.
Do you know what the security status is in Lower Manhattan? We heard some reports of schools that were under lockdown. Is there anything going on because of the police activity that parents or people in that area should be aware of beyond?
No, this incident is over. It did end right by Stuyvesant High School, so we had to make sure that all the kids were taken care of, and we held them in place for a while. But it was important that we do that. But this incident is over. David, hold on, David.
Commissioner, do you have, first of all, can you provide the age of the suspect and then the victims? And then was there indications earlier that maybe he had outfitted the van to resemble a bomb, that there were maybe gas canisters and fires?
He's a 29-year-old male, and I'm not going to talk about the truck right now. Right there.
Yes. Can you confirm that the suspect said Allahu Akbar or anything to that effect? And if so, is that the only indication that this may be an act of terrorism, or what else is it that leads you to label?
Yeah, he did make a statement when he exited the vehicle, and if you just look at the MO of the attack, that's consistent with what's been going on. So that along with the statement has enabled us to label this a terrorist event. Yeah, no, not right now.
Do you have his nationality, and was there any intelligence leading up to this that there was something in the works?
Yeah, again, 2 hours old, and we'll update you as we go along. Lenny.
Who's in charge of the investigation?
It's being conducted jointly with the NYPD and the FBI.
Can you confirm if the license is from Florida?
From Florida? Yeah, I'm not going to go into that. Yep, John. Not John, not right now, no. Yes.
Have you ever to secure the West Side Highway path against the future?
After the Times Square incident, I talked about this. Any incident that happens in New York or happens in the country or happens around the world, we have to learn from that. So, of course, we're going to take a look at that. Yep. Yeah, he's in the hospital. I'm not going to tell you what hospital. And I'm going to let Chief Gomez talk about what we're doing for the Halloween parade tonight. Carlos?
All right.
in less than 90 minutes, that parade will kick off. We will proceed with the parade, and certainly we've added more resources, more police officers, heavy weapons teams, blocker vehicles on the street leading to the route, as well as more sand trucks. And there's also heavy weapons teams being deployed throughout the city at key iconic locations.
Said no terrorism. Why was that the initial and immediate thing for that?
Well, that's this is why we do investigations. You know, initially, I'm sure whoever put that out wasn't sure what the event was, and now 2 hours into it, this is the determination that we made. Yep, in the first row. Yeah. Too early in the investigation to know that. Rocco.
Did a preliminary video reveal anything extraordinary A and B? Is this stable to answer the significance of a big problem?
I haven't looked at the video yet. We're retrieving as much video as possible. What we do know is he entered the bike path at Houston Street and he exited the bike path at Chambers Street when he collided with the school bus. And there are no intersections on the west side of the bike path between Houston and Chambers. And hold on one second, in the back there.
The two children who were on the bus, how are they?
Dan, do you have that?
They're among the injured that are serious but not life-threatening.
All right, they're among the injured that are serious but not life-threatening. Yes?
Were they the only two children on the bus at the time, and which Home Depot was the van rented from?
We're not going to talk about where the Home Depot was rented from just yet. And Bob, do we know how many people were on the bus?
4 total, 2 adults, 2 children.
There were 2 adults and 2 children on the school bus. In the back, Lisa?
Where he came into the city?
Don't know. That's part of the investigation. Yep. No, we don't have that yet.
Okay, listen, as we said, there's a lot of information to be gotten. We wanted to give you a preliminary. We're getting into a little too much detail at this point. We'll have more for you that later. We'll give you another briefing as more information comes available. But I'm going to, at this point, ask you to wait until further information at another briefing.
Look, I'll just close this off here by saying, look, again, NYPD is investigating this with our federal partners, with our state partners. There's going to be a very, very thorough investigation. But the most important thing, as Governor Cuomo said, as Commissioner O'Neill said, people should go about their business knowing that NYPD is out in force with our partner agencies tonight and throughout the week. Very important additional measures are being taken for people's safety. But the bottom line is we are going to go about our business in this city. We're not going to be deterred. And we'll get you updates later on in the evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Governor.
Okay, there, so we're getting an update there for you. 8 dead now. Unfortunately, that number has risen, as well as the amount of injured as well. 11, taking it back out to live aerials here as we continue to provide you ongoing coverage of this act of terror. 8 dead in New York City, as the New York mayor calling it an act of terror as well. We'll have continuous coverage for you right here on News Now, and we will play back that press conference in just a little bit for maybe those who came in the middle of it or caught it at the very tail end. You are watching live right here on News Now. You can see another shot here that we have available to us on our feeds.
Well, that's this is why we do investigations. You know, initially, I'm sure whoever put that out wasn't sure what the event was, and now 2 hours into it, this is the determination that we made. Yep, in the first row. Yeah. Too early in the investigation to know that. Rocco.
Did a preliminary video reveal anything extraordinary A and B? Is this stable to answer the significance of a big problem?
I haven't looked at the video yet. We're retrieving as much video as possible. What we do know is he entered the bike path at Houston Street and he exited the bike path at Chambers Street when he collided with the school bus. And there are no intersections on the west side of the bike path between Houston and Chambers. And hold on one second, in the back there.
All right, folks, once again, taking a live look here of the aerials that we have here for you of this situation, where you could see just a lot of police presence, as well as the fire department, rescue operations as well. This is just something that now we learned a little bit more from that update. A 20-something that came and attacked people just on a normal day in New York City, and it is now unfortunately turned anything but normal. Well, at least 8 people are now dead after a driver barreled to a bike path and crashed a rental pickup truck into a crowd in Lower Manhattan this afternoon, shouting Allahu Akbar, law enforcement sources tell Fox News and the Associated Press. Another 9 people were injured, authorities said. Police tweeted that one person who police shot twice had been taken into custody and is expected to survive. Police added that there are no others outstanding at this moment. Mayor Bill de Blasio, speaking at a press conference that just wrapped up, called the incident an act of terror. Governor Andrew Cuomo said that at this point in the investigation, there is no evidence to suggest that there was a wider plot. FBI officials confirmed to Fox News that they have agents responding to the situation and, quote, with a bomb squad is also on scene examining a vehicle. A law enforcement source said that the suspect had 2 weapons believed to be a paintball gun and a BB gun. The White House press secretary Sarah Sanders said President Trump has been briefed on the incident, and Attorney General Jeff Sessions also has been briefed. One witness who passed the scene while on the West Side Highway said he saw several people bleeding on the ground and a truck hit several people. Another witness told the Associated Press that the truck had collided with a small bus and another vehicle. A school photographer nearby said he peeked around the corner where he saw a thin man in a blue tracksuit running and holding a gun. He claimed he saw a heavier man chasing after him. Go back to some more of our coverage from our sister station, Fox 5.
Attacked by a very sick and deranged person. Law enforcement is following this closely. All caps, not in the USA. That is President Trump weighing in. We're told that he was given a briefing not long ago. There has been speculation all afternoon on what exactly this was, and tonight Mayor Bill de Blasio has made it clear, saying this was an act of terrorism. An act of terrorism just a few blocks from the World Trade Center. 8 victims, 8 people who were killed, it appears, when this pickup truck plowed down that pedestrian area near the bike path, killing those people. Now, we heard Governor Cuomo say that these were individuals, these were people who woke up this morning. They were enjoying a day in New York City, a fall crisp day, and now it appears that they are the victims of terrorism. Here's what we know. Just after 3 o'clock this afternoon, there was a Home Depot vehicle, a Home Depot rented pickup truck that was driving along the West Side Highway. It struck those individuals. The suspect, a 29-year-old male, was how he is described, exited the vehicle and took out 2 weapons, 2 guns that eventually were identified as a pellet gun and a paint gun. So it appears that a majority of the damage was caused by that pickup truck. That suspect was then shot by officers and taken into custody. Not a lot of information about exactly who he is, what his specific motivations were at this time. Obviously, this is an incident that has shocked this area. Many of the people here lived through 9/11. Many of the businesses here were here even then, all those years ago. And we spoke to people who were working in this area and living in this area about what happened this afternoon. Take a listen.
I was coming out of work. I'm getting ready to cross the street. I hear a big commotion. It was a different commotion. You hear ladies screaming. So when I go and I look, I see a pickup truck, a white pickup truck going down the bike path. For some reason, it drew me to walk that way. When I went that way, I seen 2 gentlemen expired in the street, in the bike path.
My sister, she was coming out of school, and a man crashed a van into the side of a school bus, and the man got out of the van, and he started firing. He had weapons on him, and he started firing.
I saw in the intersection he's still running with a gun. And then suddenly I heard the gunshots, like 5-6 gunshots. Then we all went down because we didn't know which part the gunshots coming. So we were all scared.
And again, authorities now investigating this incident here in Lower Manhattan as an act of terrorism. Governor Cuomo said just a few minutes ago that New York is an international symbol of freedom and democracy, and that makes New York City a target, but he also said it is not going to be something that is going to let the folks responsible for this win. And I have to tell you, it's a surreal scene here in Lower Manhattan. There are a lot of families who live down here, a lot of people who are in their Halloween costumes out with their children this evening, walking just past this intersection where this happened, trying to live their lives as if this is just a sick nightmare. Darian Stevens.
Yeah, it is a pretty jarring scene.
Really tough day.
And he mentioned the Halloween parade, of course, in the West Village. That is about to get underway at 7 o'clock.
Okay, once again, folks, we are out here live here for you on the Fox 10 News Now stream, as we are streaming worldwide here for you during this breaking news situation out of New York City. An act of terror right now, as 8 people dead, 11 injured after this attack. I just had up there, you saw moments ago, what President Trump tweeted in NYC. Looks like another attack by a very sick and deranged person. Law enforcement is following this closely, not in the USA. Let's take a look here at these other images here that we have here for you on News Now, continuing to stream worldwide for you.
Yeah, that's right. Now, they have just left the podium here, as you said, the governor, the mayor, and the police commissioner. They want everyone in New York to know that there will be visible added security, especially as the Halloween parade is about to begin within the next hour. It is set to.
All right, folks, we are going to play for you now, just moments ago, that New York City press conference.
First, I just want to say that today there was a loss of innocent life in Lower Manhattan. The dead and injured were just going about their days, heading home from work or from school, or enjoying the afternoon sun on bicycles. This is a tragedy of the greatest magnitude for many people, for many families here in New York City and beyond today. I want to commend the response of our NYPD officer that was on post near the location, who stopped the carnage moments after it began. Also, the work of the first responders, including the fire department and EMS personnel, surely helped save additional lives. As I said, I'll give more of a chronology in a couple minutes, but right now I'd like to introduce Mayor de Blasio.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's a very painful day in our city. Horrible tragedy on the West Side. Let me be clear that based on the information we have at this moment, this was an act of terror, and a particularly cowardly act of terror aimed at innocent civilians, aimed at people going about their lives who had no idea of what was about to hit them. We, at this moment, based on the information we have, we know of 8 innocent people who have lost their lives and over a dozen more injured. We know that this action was intended to break our spirit, but we also know New Yorkers are strong, New Yorkers are resilient, and our spirit will never be moved by an act of violence, an act meant to intimidate us. We have been tested before as a city very near the site of today's tragedy, and New Yorkers do not give in the face of these kinds of actions. We'll respond as we always do. We will be undeterred. And I want to thank everyone at the NYPD, all our first responders, for their extraordinary efforts in the midst of this tragedy, starting with the officer who stopped this tragedy from continuing, all of the first responders who came to the aid of those who were injured. Investigation is underway to get all the facts, and what we'll tell you today, of course, will be preliminary. But we know we will get down to the bottom of what happened. I want to ask all New Yorkers, all Americans, to keep the families of those lost in your thoughts and prayers. They will need our support. And I want to ask all New Yorkers to be vigilant. We know it's Halloween night, and we know in the days ahead people will be uneasy. We ask all New Yorkers to live by the idea: if you see something, say something, tell an officer immediately if you see anything unusual, anything that worries you. Be vigilant, and know that there will be extensive additional employments of NYPD officers this evening and throughout the days ahead. We will also keep you posted as this investigation continues and as the NYPD gains more information. Governor Cuomo.
Thank you. First, our thoughts and prayers are with those New Yorkers who we lost today. It reminds us all how precious life is. They left the house this morning. They were enjoying the beautiful west side of Manhattan on a beautiful fall day, and they're not going to be returning home. And that shock and that pain is going to be very real. And our thoughts and our prayers are with all of them. Our first responders did an extraordinary job. The NYPD, the FDNY, the FBI, the New York State Police, EMS. We have the finest security on the globe. And to see them in action today proved that once again. The new terrorist tactic, which they've called for publicly, are these lone wolves who commit an act of terror. This is all very preliminary. It's only been a couple of hours, but at this point there's no evidence to suggest a wider plot or a wider scheme. But the actions of one individual who meant to cause pain and harm and probably death and the resulting terror. And that was the purpose. We will be vigilant. More police everywhere. You'll see them in the airport. You'll see them in the tunnels. It's not because there's any evidence of any ongoing threat or any additional threat. It is just out of vigilance and out of caution. And the truth is, New York
those
is an
bike lanes now, in the wake of what is now being called a terror attack by this individual who drove a rented Home Depot truck onto that lane right next to the West Side Highway and started mowing people down. It was a scene of chaos and terror, and he left at least 8 people dead and at least a dozen injured. And as you reported, the suspect, who was shot by police and is expected to survive, is being treated at one of the hospitals where some of the victims are also being treated. Among the victims, a couple people and a couple kids who were on a school bus that got in the way of that guy. Who knows how many other people he might have hit if he had not hit that school bus and then jumped out and led to that video that you saw of him running through the intersection there and apparently holding a couple of fake guns in his hands.
And Rick, to emphasize what the police said, zero reason to believe that anybody else was involved. I'm guessing their viewers going, how do they know that?
Well, they're going to try and determine that. Obviously, they're working on that right now. And in fact, one of the things I was told by law enforcement, a member of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, which works with the FBI, is that, of course, the FBI is the lead agency in anything terror-related. They are investigating this and have already gone to the Home Depot in Jersey City, just across the Hudson River from New York City, where this person apparently rented that truck, and they want to look at the video, look at whatever evidence he left behind to see if anyone was with him when he rented the truck. How did he get there? Did he leave a vehicle in the parking lot? Is there anyone else connected to this guy that might have had knowledge of this attack and or might have been working with him on other attacks? So that's something that the JTTF, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, is examining very closely, as they must at this hour, Shepard.
We're not yet using his name, but we certainly believe we know who he is. We know authorities know who he is. Have they found out anything about his background to your knowledge, Rick?
No. I know that they have an ID. I know that there is a name, but I have not been told anything else about this person beyond what was described to me as a Middle Eastern background, and the fact that he did, according to witnesses and law enforcement, yell Allah Akbar when he exited his vehicle and began running into the intersection with a paintball gun and a BB gun on his person.
You always want to know, but as New Yorkers, we know that in the past there have been cells of people. Sleeper cells might be describing it wrong, but groups of people of like mind, and one or someone might go do something and then others would have similar designs, and that's the reason for the questions.
Of course.
And I'm sure so many New Yorkers have them.
Of course, and they want to know anyone and everyone that this person had contact with in the last hours and days and weeks. Who were his friends? Who were his associates? Who was he talking with? Were there messages exchanged between any of these people? And if this was some sort of pre-planned attack, were there others in line to do similar things? As you've been reporting, a major event with 1 million potential revelers in New York City and not far from this location, scheduled for later this evening. And they will be beefing up security at the Halloween parade. There will be sand trucks acting as blocker vehicles to protect other lanes of traffic from any vehicles that try to get close to the crowds. They'll have heavy weapons teams with long guns, snipers on rooftops. They have to do these things now because of the environment we live in today, Shepard. But they're boosting it even further because of what has happened in Lower Manhattan this afternoon.
You know, my guess would be for people who don't have to work tonight, we have to work, but people who don't have to work, that'd be a big destination in New York City tonight. It just seems to be the flavor of the place.
Well, you know, the mayor and the governor and even the police commissioner were telling New Yorkers to go about their business, that we will not be deterred by acts like this. I hope that that's the case, and I hope that people remain strong and vigilant, but at the same time, Shepard, I mean, it's hard to just turn your back on this. It's hard to not think about it, and I would be surprised if the crowds were as large as they might have been had this not happened.
I'd be surprised as well for technical reasons and transportation matters, if nothing else. Rick Leventhal, fantastic reporting today. Thank you. Leading the New York Times, the paper of record, and quoting from above the fold, as of this hour, 8 people were killed when a man drove 20 blocks down a bike path beside the Hudson River in Lower Manhattan on Tuesday afternoon before he crashed his pickup truck, jumped out with fake guns, and was shot by police officer, the authorities said.
At this moment, based on the information we have, we know of 8 innocent people who have lost their lives and over a dozen more injured. We know that this action was intended to break our spirit. But we also know New Yorkers are strong, New Yorkers are resilient, and our spirit will never be moved by an act of violence, an act meant to intimidate us. We have been tested before as a city very near the site of today's tragedy, and New Yorkers do not give in the face of these kinds of actions. We'll respond as we always heard. And I want to thank everyone at the NYPD, all our first responders, for their extraordinary efforts in the midst of this tragedy, starting with the officer who stopped this tragedy from continuing.
Now you heard the mayor there use words like resilient, vigilant, undeterred. He's asking New Yorkers to go about their daily lives this evening. The NYPD will let the Halloween parade go on. That famed Halloween parade that happens in the Greenwich Village area will be happening this evening. Of course, there will be a measurably stepped up police presence, including barriers and obviously additional officers. As for the scene here, we know that federal authorities are on scene, as you would expect now that this has been declared an act of terrorism. We saw several FBI agents approach this intersection not long ago. This is going to be a long investigation. One of the first things they have to find out is more from this suspect. This individual, a 29-year-old male, was taken into custody, so it's possible they will be able to question him. They will be able to find out any particular motives. Was he influenced? Was he inspired? Was he involved with the ISIS terrorist organization that has claimed responsibility for so many of these horrific acts all across the world? So we know that there is plenty left to do. There is plenty that investigators still do not know and that want to know, and this investigation still just unfolding. Ernie and Allison, back over to you.
All right, Dan Bowens, thank you very much. Ernie Adasis with Allison Morris joining you right now, continuing coverage of what's going on. Breaking news, still details coming in. As we know now, at least 8 people are dead and 12 plus injured on the West Side Highway after they were struck down by a pickup rental truck along a bike path. Shots were fired, a horrific scene. One person now in custody after being shot in the abdomen by police as he exited the car, showing 2 weapons that apparently were fake or unusual.
Yes, police saying that this all started around 3:05 this afternoon. They say that a man driving a rented Home Depot truck entered the West Side Highway bike path at Houston Street heading southbound. At Chambers is when he hit a school bus, injuring 2 adults and 2 children. After that, he got out of the truck brandishing those 2 handguns as they appeared at first, but police now saying they were a paintball gun and a pellet gun. At least that's what was retrieved at the scene. Police did shoot that suspect in the abdomen. That person is believed to be alive and at the hospital right now, so I'm sure police will have a long list of questions for that person.
Yeah, we also heard the suspect is said to be about 29 years old. There are reports that he's identified as Sepulo Sapov, said to have a Florida ID, perhaps from Tampa, Florida. Let's get more details of what's going on. Matt King is standing by in Lower Manhattan with an update for us right now. Let's go to Mac.
Hey, Ernie, we've been out here on scene for about 2 hours now. We got out here probably right around 4 o'clock this afternoon. It took us forever to get here. We were close by. We were over in Washington Square Park. And it took us a solid 35, 40 minutes to get here. Traffic was brutal with closed streets and just everything was snarled. Got here, and then since being here, I can no longer speak to the vehicular traffic, but on foot, this has been just like it has been since we got here. This whole intersection packed with people, which you'd expect of first responders. We've been seeing police vehicles and fire vehicles and EMS vehicles and various other vehicles with sirens on them going up and down Chambers here. You're looking to the west down there. That's the West Side Highway at the end of the street in New Jersey. That's where everything happened today. But as I said, passersby, this whole intersection has been packed for hours now with people just coming, people that heard about it and wanted to be here, people that were just left work or just left their home and came out here and stumbled upon it. And it's just been crowded. People have been able to move and walk if they wanted to, but they've been here. This is the police line just sort of standing and staring, and we're now starting to see trick-or-treaters. That the camera's not at little kid height, but if you were down about 2 feet, you'd see lots of little kids in costumes. Businesses have remained open, businesses have remained packed, and it's just been a very crowded scene, Ernie.
Going on out there, Matt King in Lower Manhattan. Thank you very much.
All right, and Sharon Crowley has also been out there this evening for us, covering what's been going on. Sharon, what is the latest that you can tell us this evening?
Yeah, the press conference wrapped up just within the last half hour or so with the governor, the mayor, and the police commissioner. I think the police commissioner put it best when he said this is a loss of innocent life of the greatest magnitude. And, of course, the mayor and the governor asking New Yorkers and really all Americans to pray for the city tonight and what happened. Just to recap for you, 8 people killed and more than a dozen with serious injuries being treated in the hospital right now. After that 29-year-old suspect, as you've been hearing, in that rented Home Depot truck, plowed down pedestrians and people on their bikes on the bike trail on the west side, entering at Houston Street, exiting at Chambers, and then running right into a school bus. Now, when he jumped out of that rented truck with those 2 fake guns and he was shot by a first responder, he did yell something out, something that police wouldn't confirm today at the news conference, but it did make them tell us that he is considered a terror suspect. They would not say his nationality or much more about the investigation, just that it is ongoing. Also, guys, they didn't get intelligence leading up to this. There was no known threat, and there's no known threat right now. But there is going to be, as we said, added security, especially for the Halloween parade, which is getting underway tonight, and, of course, the marathon this weekend. They said there would be extra sand trucks and extra police visible on the highways, on the airports, everything they can do, of course, to give a sense of New York feeling safe, especially after what happened here today. We don't know, of course, way too early to know the motive, but what they're saying is that it's a lone wolf at this point, and of course, it's under investigation if he had any ties to any terror groups, but that's what they're going with right now. Now, they wouldn't say where the Home Depot truck was rented or anything, but it's so early in the case, we're still trying to get for information. Let's listen now to what the mayor had to say just a short time ago.
It's a very painful day in our city. Horrible tragedy on the west side. Let me be clear that based on the information we have at this moment, this was an act of terror, and a particularly cowardly act of terror aimed at innocent civilians, aimed at people going about their lives who had no idea of what was about to hit them. We, at this moment, based on the information we have, we know of 8 innocent people who have lost their lives and over a dozen more injured. We know that this action was intended to break our spirit, but we also know New Yorkers are strong, New Yorkers are resilient, and our spirit will never be moved by an act of violence, an act meant to intimidate us. We have been tested before as a city very near the site of today's tragedy, and New Yorkers do not give in the face of these kinds of actions. We'll respond as we always do. We will be undeterred. And I want to thank everyone at the NYPD, all our first responders, for their extraordinary efforts in the midst of this tragedy, starting.
And Ernie and Allison, one more word about those first responders. A number of officials here today at the press conference really credited especially one officer who was able to shoot the suspect, not killing the suspect. They're hoping to get more information from him. That suspect been taken to the hospital, but was able to stop perhaps more deaths or injuries from happening very quickly after this all started taking place just after 3 o'clock this afternoon. Now, the governor said, that he doesn't want New Yorkers, he wants them to continue being New Yorkers, not to be afraid. But of course, the city is a symbol of international freedom and democracy, which of course makes it a target. Now, as I said, so far, the investigation is underway. There are no other imminent threats, but you will see wherever you go added police presence. This is not only NYPD, but the FBI also involved in this investigation. Allison and Ernie?
All right, Sharon, thank you so much. As Sharon mentioned and the governor said as well, you will see a lot of police tonight. You will see a lot going on, but don't read into that as though there are other threats or other things to be concerned about. They want us to be protected, but for right now, this incident is closed.
Yeah, and we just heard from the mayor talking about 8 innocent lives going about their business today who lost their lives, unfortunately. More than a dozen injured. We want to find out more about what's going on. We're going to go to Linda Schmidt, who's standing by right now at Bellevue Hospital. Very busy activity going on down there. Linda, give us a detail of an update on what's going on.
Yeah, Ernie and Allison, there's been a lot of activity going on here. Now, as you can see, there are police barricades right here behind me. We're across the street from the entrance. Now, you're not going to see a lot of activity in the entrance here. Where you're going to see all the activity where we are not allowed to go is on the back side of the hospital. That's where the emergency entrance is. And like I said earlier, we've been here since about 3:45, and at about that same time, we're getting off the drive, driving up to that emergency entrance, and already they had police barricades there and EMS ambulances going in and out. So this is the area where they. In addition, now we're talking about the 8 people who sadly lost their lives. 6 of them died on the scene down there on the West Side Highway. The other 2 were brought here to Bellevue Hospital, and sadly they died once they were brought here to the hospital. Now, also, the commissioner did not want to talk about what hospital the suspect is in. However, I have been able to confirm that he is, in fact, here at Bellevue Hospital. He is being treated in the hospital right now. 29 years old. He was shot in the thigh. And as Sharon was saying, and as I was saying earlier this afternoon, thankfully this person survived. Hopefully he will survive, because then police will be able to interview him extensively and get more information out of this person as to what inspired him to do this. Is he? They've already confirmed that he's a lone wolf, but did he get all of this inspiration from checking things out online? Was he inspired by what happened in Paris and in other European cities, in Germany, that we have been seeing over the past few years? And also ISIS, as we all know, because we've been reporting this for at least, I think it's about 2 years now, they have been encouraging people to get these trucks, to rent them, and then just barrel through areas where they can kill as many people as possible. That's what we saw in Nice, France, when that terrorist did what he did there, killing, I believe it was more than 80 people. But thankfully, this person has survived, and the cops are going to be able to talk to him, and they will get the information from him as to what inspired him to do this. But again, he is being treated here at the hospital, as well as 11 people who are in serious condition, but thankfully their injuries are not life-threatening. For now, that's the very latest from here. Back to both of you.
Yeah, and Linda, back to the injured. I know that the paramedics, emergency workers were on the job. They're setting up a triage, trying to get them help immediately before they transferred them over to Bellevue Hospital. That indeed, in many ways, made a difference as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the faster you're able to respond to injuries like that and having the experts do it, absolutely, they could save lives.
Thank you very much, Linda, for that.
Yeah, they were even crediting a police officer who was there, happened to be working, and caught things moments after it happened with just getting everyone alerted.
And there were a lot of other people, too, bystanders who were helping out.
Getting help right away, making a difference. We have Joe Toohey in the newsroom now, our political reporter. Joe has some of the reaction coming out of Washington right now. Joe?
Hey, Ernie and Allison. Yeah, just wanted to get up to speed. There seems like there's a real coalescing coming around calling this an act of terror. We're seeing statements and reaction pouring in from leaders here in New York and in Washington, D.C. We've heard from the Department of Homeland Security released a statement, Acting Secretary Elaine Duke, calling it an apparent act of terrorism that occurred in New York City, saying the department is closely monitoring the situation and working with our federal, state, and local partners in responding to the tragedy. And we're also hearing from the White House. Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders says President Trump has been briefed by Chief of Staff John Kelly on the situation. He'll be continually updated as more details are known. The White House offering their thoughts and prayers. And President Trump, as we've seen in so many of these situations, taking to Twitter himself, weighing in, posting, in NYC, looks like another attack by a very sick and deranged person. Law enforcement is following this closely. I also spoke with Senator Schumer's office, who tell me the senator has been getting regular briefs, and he tweeted himself thanking the first responders, thanks NYPD for rapidly responding to tragic situation downtown, worried and saddened to hear about injuries and loss of life. I also spoke to Congressman Jerry Nadler's office, who you may know he's the congressman who represents that area of Lower Manhattan. I spoke to his communications director, Daniel Schwartz. He told me very concerned about the situation in our district and devastated for the victims and their families. We have been in contact with the mayor and governor's offices. Obviously, we're closely monitoring the situation, but at this point, we want to let the NYPD carry forward with the investigation until we have all of the information. We've also heard from the First Lady, the Vice President, and as I said at the beginning, there's a coalescing of calling this an act of terror from Homeland Security, from the President, and Ernie and Allison reaction just continuing to pour in on Twitter and over statements and things like that.
All right, Joe, thank you very much for that. We heard from many of our city officials today, and Governor Cuomo talking about how precious, a reminder of how precious life is. You know, these people going about their business today have no idea. 8 lives lost, more than a dozen, 2 dozen people injured. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Ernie, he said it so beautifully. They were enjoying a beautiful day on the west side of Manhattan, a beautiful fall day, and they will not be returning home.
Absolutely.
And really, that is the essence of this tragedy. Those people will not be returning home
I know,
tonight.
and when you see the video of those bikes that were just totally smashed, a horrific scene. Dan Bowens is standing by for us right now with the very latest on what's going on down there in Lower Manhattan. Are there any updates, Dan? What's the scene down there like?
Yeah, Ernie, not long ago we saw federal officials, FBI agents running through the street trying to get onto the scene there. Obviously, the investigation just getting underway here. Not only do they want to know what was the motivation behind what this suspect did, but maybe who he spoke to. Was he inspired? Was he actually influenced by somebody from a particular terrorist organization? Governor Cuomo tweeting out not too long ago that this was a, quote, lone wolf attack. But at this point, no particular organizations such as Al-Qaeda or ISIS have claimed claimed responsibility. And in these types of situations, we know that often if the suspect is killed or if the suspect has died, ISIS will claim responsibility right away. Sometimes when they're arrested, you don't hear ISIS actually speak out because possibly they're worried that the person who's been arrested could give over some information that could potentially be damaging to that organization. No matter what the classification of what happened here, when authorities are calling this terrorism, this was undoubtedly gruesome. 8 people who were killed, 8 people who woke up this morning and were just enjoying this day out here on the West Side Highway when that pickup truck plowed into the bike path and the pedestrian walkway, killing all 8 of those people. That suspect has been taken into custody, and at this hour, there is a large scene at the intersection just behind me there, not far away, at Chambers and the West Side Highway. That intersection actually stretches from here where we are all the way down to the West Side Highway. In between, there is a school and a community college, and students are actually having to walk around to get into that particular area. Many of them were actually on their way to class when this happened before. This is a busy area. You can see behind me there are plenty of families who are out here who are walking around with their children, who are out here trying to put this gruesome and awful incident out of their minds. Ernie, back over to you.
All right, Dan, thank you so much. We're going to take it from here. Joining us now.
Yeah, let's continue. Manny Gomez is joining us right now, a former FBI agent, also with the NYPD. Manny, a horrific story. I know that you've been through so much, and there's a lot of emotion involved in a story like this. We're trying to figure out, what happened here, the motive, more about the man, what might have inspired this thing, how did it happen? What are your thoughts right now?
Well, obviously, this is a terrorist attack. That's already proven. We were able to determine and capture the suspect, which is good that we have him because now we could find out more about the motive. And the motive is key because the motive will tell us potentially how to prevent another such attack. This is perhaps a lone wolf, but
and it's good that he's alive.
And he's good that he's alive because that way we could actually interrogate him, find out exactly what his motive was. Was he acting in concert? Was he recruited or was he directed by a terrorist organization such as ISIS or Al-Qaeda, or was he inspired, and how? And we could learn how this individual came to commit this horrific act and potentially then profile other people that could potentially be of the same mindset.
Right.
Manny, something unusual to me, and I wonder if this struck you as well, that police were saying that the weapons they thought he had appeared not to be real. They don't believe that the bomb or what looked like a bomb in the truck were real. Oftentimes when we hear about terrorist incidents, I don't recall a time when we heard about so many fake weapons. Your reaction to that?
Well, my initial reaction was this person is his exit strategy was potentially death by cop, which means he knew he didn't have a lethal weapon, and he wanted to go out in a blaze of glory. Fortunately, that didn't happen because, like I said before, he was captured alive, and now we're going to be able to learn, potentially learn from him to prevent another attack.
And Manny, regardless, the frightening thing is that we've seen it in Nice, in Barcelona, in London. The objective is to try to kill as many people as you can with this vehicle.
Absolutely, and this is now the weapon of choice. And ISIS's message is, if you can't get explosives, if you can't get firearms or knives, then rent a car, a truck, whatever, and just go in and launch yourself into a multitude of people. And it's been proven super effective ever since Nice. It's been tragedy after tragedy since this happened. It's the weapon of choice, and unfortunately, it's going to happen again here or somewhere else.
Another thing I know that caught people completely by surprise and alarmed them in a way was the proximity to the World Trade Center. Of course, that is a reminder for us of 9/11. And as soon as people hear Lower Manhattan, of course.
Absolutely. This is an international incident, obviously, and everybody's in mourning. New York already has been through a 9/11. We are resilient people, and we will get to the bottom of this. And we have the best police department and FBI office in the entire world, and I'm sure they're going to be more proactive to try to prevent it. Remember, we have the Halloween parade this evening.
Tonight, right? So, we talked about tighter security and so forth, right?
Absolutely.
Know about our business. As you know, the FBI, NYPD, they're trying to piece as much information as they can together. We heard at press conference conference now. It's still early. They're looking for eyewitnesses. There's a lot of surveillance cameras down in that area as well.
Absolutely. There are thousands of cameras. That is perhaps the most highly surveilled area in the planet. And so we have detectives and agents out there as we speak trying to piece together videotape from different buildings, etc., to try to get the history. There's people, I'm sure, at Home Depot trying to figure out what identification he used to rent that truck. Was he there? Pulling the video from it, going to his home, getting information from his computer, from his mobile devices, from his family, from his neighbors, his colleagues, everything. They're going to try to find out from this individual's birth till today and piece together his entire life to, again, try to come up with a motive and a reason as to what made this person commit this heinous crime.
Right. And as you know, in fluid situations like this, there's a lot of information that goes out there. We don't know if it's accurate. We just hear it and sort of report it based on different sources. But there was one report that he may have been, the suspect may have been shouting something when he exited the vehicle, which could be a clue as to what his motive was, what he was thinking.
Absolutely. If he did shout Al Akbar, then that is the calling card of a terrorist act, and then it obviously it is what it is. But I think that's already been confirmed that this is a terrorist act. It's not the random drugged individual like we had in Times Square several months ago. It is a terrorist act. Now the question is, what's the motive? Was he inspired or directed by an organization such as ISIS? If so, how? Was it through the internet? Did he travel abroad?
The internet, that's an important area. You're right about that.
And dozens of people get recruited and or inspired by ISIS through the internet, and we really need to study that and find out how is it that we counter that. We're the most highly technological country in the world. We should find a way to be able to bring their websites down and or to counter them with our own cyber information.
It's hard to pull positives from a tragedy like this or to look on a bright side on a day like this, but when you started looking at that map and that area where he was driving through, and you looked at all of the schools that were there, all of the children who were getting out today, and how the police said they were able to lock down Stuyvesant and, you know, get those kids in place, really a miracle.
And those kids were in lockdown, too.
Yeah, really, when you look at how many children were in harm's way.
Incredible. And also that first precinct police officer, how he reacted instantaneously to prevent this individual from getting away. It's a tragic situation, but hopefully we'll be able to learn from it to protect our people from the next one.
Manny Gomez, stay with us, okay? Thank you so much. We're going to go over to Sharon Crowley back at Bellevue Hospital to find out what's going on over there. We have a number of injured.
No, Sharon's actually at the briefing where the press briefing was. That wrapped up some time ago. And Sharon, we heard from the governor, we heard from the mayor, we heard from the NYPD. You know, what can you tell us from that press briefing?
Yeah, I can tell you that even though this is still in the very early stages of the investigation, the governor, the mayor, the police commissioner all came out within about 2 hours of when this happened because they want to put a sense of calm out there to New Yorkers and to people who are watching what happened in spite of this tragedy. They wanted to let New Yorkers know that they're on top of it, that the suspect has been caught, wounded, but taken to the hospital, and to give people an update, as we said, of course, of the 8 people who were killed, more than a dozen injured, though those injuries are serious, not life-threatening. Now, so many questions, and I was listening to what Manny was saying about who this person is and what possibly motivated him. It is, of course, being considered a terrorist attack here in Lower Manhattan. And, you know, one of the things the governor's job, of course, to do to try to issue some calm, and he tried to do that when he spoke just a short time ago.
Our thoughts and prayers are with those New Yorkers who we lost today. It reminds us all how precious life is. They left the house this morning. They were enjoying the beautiful west side of Manhattan on a beautiful fall day, and they're not going to be returning home. And that shock and that pain is going to be very real. And our thoughts and our prayers are with all of them. Our first responders did an extraordinary job. The NYPD, the FDNY, the FBI, the New York State Police, EMS. We have the finest security on the globe. And to see them in action today proved that once again. The new terrorist tactic, which they've called for publicly, are these lone wolves who commit an act of terror. This is all very preliminary. It's only been a couple of hours, but at this point there's no evidence to suggest a wider plot or a wider scheme. But the actions of one individual who meant to cause pain and harm and probably death and the resulting terror. And that was the purpose. We will be vigilant.
Now, the governor, the police commissioner, and the mayor also asked at this news conference in the Q&A portion, was there any intelligence, any threat leading up to this that they were aware of? And they said no. And in fact, there's no imminent threat now. Again, this person appears to have been acting as a lone wolf. We don't know what inspired him. We do know when he crashed into that school bus and was shot by a police officer that he did shout a couple things in the air that led them to believe that he was, in fact, inspired, if not a terrorist himself. Now, we tried to find out where he was from or where that truck was from, and the police say it's just simply too early to release those kind of details in the investigation. They just wanted to get the message out as to how many dead, how many injured, and that the suspect was, in fact, in custody and in the hospital. Of course, will be heavily interrogated when they get that opportunity. Ernie and Allison.
All right, Sharon, thank you so much. You know, Sharon mentioning, the governor mentioning, this incident is done right now, but people will see quite a presence around and should not be alarmed by it, but it's meant to keep us safe tonight. Reiterating again, this was a lone wolf, but I'm sure, Ernie, there are a lot of people who aren't going to be able to sleep well tonight.
Well, no question about it for a while, too. As we know, this all started shortly after 3 o'clock this afternoon. 8 people dead, more than 12 injured. Still unfolding. We're going to the scene right now in Lower Manhattan. Matt King is standing by with perhaps an update on what's happening down there. Mac.
Yeah, Ernie, Allison, we've been here on the corner of Greenwich and Chambers Street. You're looking west down Chambers Street right now towards where those people were killed earlier today. We've been here for a couple of hours now and seen any number of various first responders, police vehicles, fire department vehicles, paramedics, etc. We've seen a couple of big black armored vehicles that say NYPD on the side. The change in the last 20, 30 minutes or so, if we are able to zoom in through my photojournalist Dave Rosenfeld's lens, we've seen some FBI jackets down there at the 2 blocks down where this incident happened, and some individuals walking around in those head-to-toe sort of white suits you'd see for someone doing a messy job, say. Now, if we pull back out to the intersection here, you can see how crowded it is, and it's been like this since we arrived. Obviously, a lot of TV cameras and a lot of folks holding notepads here to report, but also a lot of passers-by. We're starting to see trick-or-treaters. We're starting to see adults in costume, and also just people passing through, stopping, taking a picture, asking what's happened. Still not everyone even knows what's happened. Darkness has fallen. They're bringing in some lights. You see, just like this, a constant stream of vehicles still coming in and out. We've seen some community affairs police officers here to answer questions. We've seen a bunch of police officers on bicycles kind of making laps around this 2 or 3 block radius just to be here, to have that presence. And I think we should continue to see, as the mayor and the governor said, a continued police presence throughout the remainder of the night.
I'm sure that a lot of people are asking questions, perhaps to you and police officers and other security people down there, trying to figure out, you know, what's going to happen, how safe are they, what should they be thinking about, how are they handling that, Mac?
It's a lot of that. It's a lot of people that didn't even hear what happened.
Yes.
So they want to know what happened here. Did something happen? And so we are oftentimes the first people they're hearing it from. You know, when you're in the news and you're watching the news, you think everyone knows, and you're on Twitter and it's constant. But some people do have their head in their work, their head in their school, etc. And then they kind of emerge, and this is a brand new scene to them. So honestly, I've encountered more people just learning for the first time what's happened, as opposed to already knowing and wanting to know what happens next.
Yeah, well, it's Halloween night. We're looking for a safe night, too. Mac, thank you very much.
What a juxtaposition to see those lights there in the background and then some little Spider-Men, you know, scuttling across. Those innocent children, really. What a night. All right, Teresa Priolo's in the newsroom for us. Now, she's been tracking what's been going on this evening on social media. Teresa, what's the latest on that front?
We do want to mention, Allison and Ernie, that actually the mayor's office just tweeted that the mayor is headed down to the Village Parade route in order to check that out and check out the security measures down there. So that's something that we're
Chien in Lower Manhattan.
We're also keeping an eye on that. They just recently tweeted that out. But I want to show you what other people are saying on social media as a result of what has happened today. First of all, Twitter. Just look at what's trending here. There's been over 12,000 tweets about Tribeca. There has been over 26,000 about the West Side, 19,000 for Chambers, and also the World Trade Center. Facebook initially activated the safety check for the incident in New York City. They have since changed it to an incident that is occurring in Kabul. But this is how a lot of people happen to find out about what was going on today if they were working in New Jersey or in another part of the city and not perhaps in Lower Manhattan. This is how they found out, by simply logging on to social media and seeing that their friends had marked themselves as safe. Something I have not seen in other past incidents, big incidents that we've had here in the city, is that Google Maps has decided to put an indicator in the area to show that the incident occurred there. Perhaps as a way to avoid, to tell people to avoid the area, to avoid the traffic, to let them know that the area is shut down. But I have not seen this before. So right here at Chambers and West, you see West Side Highway, Lower Manhattan incident. And again, this just gives you a lay of the land and just an overview of the scene here. So you have the incident that occurred here right by Stuyvesant High School. Not far away, of course, you have Brooklyn, you have the Brooklyn Bridge and City Hall, and of course you have the World Trade Center. And this entire area all shut down as well as a result. Now let me take you to some tweets if I can. This is one that is making the rounds on Instagram. It was posted by Illmatic NYC. This is a picture of the suspect, that 29-year-old male, on the ground, and he's been apprehended by police. His hands are behind his back. It's a bit of a dark picture. You can see his hands behind his back, his knees are up to his chin, and police are there with him as they load him into the ambulance. As we know from the press conference with the police commissioner as well as the mayor and the governor, he was shot by police and taken to the hospital. I'm going to show you a few other tweets if I can. This one was incredibly chilling when I saw this. This was put out by the Staten Island Advance. At least 6 people were killed and at least 15 people were struck by a rented van near Stuyvesant High School. And then you can just see the bikes scattered all along the bike path. This is an area I know very well, Allison and Ernie. I live down in Battery Park. I take this bike path all the time. It is always busy, and especially on a day like today, you are bound to find multiple people biking along, people walking their dogs, walking their kids, going for a run on the Hudson. It's such a beautiful place to be able to do that. But when you look at this picture, and for me, you know that it's your neighborhood, it certainly puts things into perspective as well. Just a few more to show you. This is the overview of the scene down in Tribeca. That's the footbridge right by Stuyvesant. And again, all the traffic there, all the first responders, and just an overview of that as well. And this picture was from a little earlier today. This was all basically the principal players being briefed before they came out to address the press. You had John Miller of the NYPD, you have the governor, the mayor, the police commissioner, really just making sure that they have all their ducks in a row as they continue to tell us all the latest information. We are continuing to monitor things here, and more video is coming in by the minute. As we experienced earlier, Allison and Ernie, not all of it is unfortunately suitable to show you on TV, despite the fact that it is on social media. We've seen a lot of pictures that, for me, are very reminiscent of the attack in Barcelona, or perhaps what happened in Nice, France, where you just see white sheets covering the victims on the ground, or better yet, you see first responders or just everyday New Yorkers tending to the victims on the ground, and we don't know if those are some of the deceased or if those were the people that were transported to the hospital with the non-life-threatening injuries. So we certainly don't want to show you those, but it is important to mention that there is a very real and very gruesome element to this that is in fact playing out on social media. Send things back to both of you.
Thanks, Teresa. You bring up such a great point about this happening just where everybody lives and commutes and works and spends their time. You know, I don't know if this was the intended target for this attacker, but you know, just a simple bike path where the week of the New York City Marathon, so many people are running and exercising, going to and from work or school on what was a very beautiful day.
Yeah, exactly. And now we're also seeing pictures that we haven't seen in the past, you know, with a lot of social media available to us. Some good and some not so good. We have to be very careful what we show. As we mentioned, Stuyvesant High School, middle school, affected by a lockdown there. A lot of parents concerned about their children. Arthur Chien is down in Lower Manhattan, who has spoken to one of the mothers, and let's hear more about that from you, Arthur.
Well, Ernie, first of all, the Associated Press now reporting that witnesses, according to the police department, they are learning that witnesses told police officers who arrived at the scene that when the suspect got out of his vehicle, he did say Allah Akbar. Now, you heard the police commissioner in the press conference answer to the fact that something was said, but not going into any detail. But the Associated Press now reporting that. We'll see how that reshapes the classification of this investigation. Taking a look right now at Chambers Street, we're about a block from that incident right now, or at least where it finished up, not where it unfolded all the way along the West Side Highway. And you see the police presence out here. It has always been out here, but they certainly upgraded their hardware, so to speak. Now, a lot has been said during our coverage here about the schools that are here, both Stuyvesant and BMCC. And since we arrived shortly after news of this started spreading, there was a woman who had been standing out here very patiently for some time, checking her phone constantly, as many people were checking out here. It turns out that she was a parent. It appears her daughter is a student at Stuyvesant and actually saw the gunman. It was a very short exchange, but it gives you an idea of how frantic it must be to have a loved one on the other side of this police barricade. Let's roll it.
I'm sorry, she just said I saw the man with the guns. He pointed the gun at me. I'm sorry. I have to go get my child. What is your
Of course, during the police press conference, they told us that the two so-called weapons that the individual had in hand were not actually real. One was a paint gun, and the other one was a BB gun. And as our expert in the studio, Manny Gomez, pointed out, what he may have been attempting was what is the nomenclature in the police department is death by cop. Knowing an individual can't actually carry out an attack and take his own life at the end, he'll go at police with those weapons, try to get them to shoot him and take his life. Of course, right now, he is still alive, and maybe there is some hope for some answers there. And certainly some of the other answers, one of the crucial ones to be asked here is that on a day like today, given the amount of crowds that will be gathering in certain parts of the city tonight, if this individual had set out to seek to do tremendous damage, he really chose an earlier time than when the crowds would be gathering. We're certainly not condoning it or advising anything, but certainly law enforcement officials will want to know why he chose the location that he chose and the time of day that he chose. As it is, too many fatalities to speak of, but there is obviously later on tonight a much bigger event that police are now very, very concerned about, and as you've been pointing out, responding properly to in terms of increasing security to make sure that people who go out tonight are safe. Another point that the governor made very clear. Also, by the way, I want to mention Chambers Street here is essentially a corridor from here where we are across the City Hall, and then beyond that, just beyond that, is Police Plaza. And so we've seen a lot of officials shuttling back and forth. Before we saw the mayor on scene himself, and we expect that they'll continue to get briefed out here. That's the latest from down here. We go back to you guys.
Arthur, we will get back to you.
All right, for those of you just joining us tonight, let's run you through what happened this afternoon. We now know that there was a terror incident in Lower Manhattan. The chronology from the police department: at 3:05 this afternoon, a male driving a rented Home Depot truck entered the West Side Highway bike path at Houston, driving southbound. At Chambers Street, he hit a school bus, injuring 2 adults and 2 children. After that collision, he exited the truck, brandishing what they believed to be 2 handguns at the time. Police say they shot him in the abdomen. He was transported to the hospital. Police now are saying those weapons, well, they were a paintball gun and a pellet gun. That's what they retrieved at the scene. We know there were 8 fatalities, several people injured, at least a dozen or more. The attacker is in custody and is still alive. And as we've been saying all throughout the evening, certainly police will have a host of questions. Quite an interrogation for him tonight. Yeah, that's for sure.
About an hour ago, we heard from city officials, including Police Commissioner James O'Neill, who called this a tragedy of greatest magnitude. He had some other things to say. Let's give a listen to that right now.
3:05 p.m., a male driving a rented Home Depot pickup truck entered the West Side Highway bicycle path at Houston Street, began driving southbound, striking a number of pedestrians and bicyclists along the route. At Chambers Street, the truck collided with a school bus, injuring 2 adults and 2 children. After the collision, the driver of the truck, a 29-year-old male, exited the vehicle brandishing 2 handguns. A uniformed police officer assigned to the 1st Precinct confronted the subject and shot him in the abdomen. The subject was wounded and transported to a local hospital. A paintball gun and a pellet gun were recovered at the scene. The subject's identity is not being released at this time, pending further investigation. At this point, there are 8 fatalities reported in connection with this incident. In addition, several people have been injured, and Commissioner Nigro from our fire department will discuss that. Dan?
All right, Commissioner O'Neill giving us an update. Right now, let's get to more on the story. Bellevue Hospital is where the action is right now. Linda Schmidt is standing by. Any update on the condition of the injured down there, Linda?
As of this particular moment, no, Ernie, unfortunately, there's not. The good news is that
All right, it looks like Linda's shot was frozen there, but she was also telling us that even though Commissioner O'Neill did not say this, that Linda's sources have told her that Bellevue Hospital is where the suspect is as well, obviously being treated. And once that person is well enough to respond, police will undoubtedly have a lot to ask.
All right, we're going to go back to Mandy Gomez. Mandy, you've been sitting here, you've been listening to it, all the developments that are taking place. What's happening right now? What do you expect is going on at this moment?
Well, at this moment, the investigators are trying to ascertain the motive as to what this person has done. They're also trying to see if the physicians will let them talk to the suspect. If they're able to get something out of him early, it's much more beneficial to the investigation than later on when perhaps the legal system takes its course.
And sometimes that can be very difficult to do depending on the medical condition and what is allowed, right?
Absolutely. But it also depends on what the physician's allowed and what the individual wants. Maybe sometimes these people, they want to vent. They want to brag about what they did and why they did it. So time is crucial. I'm sure investigators are at the hospital trying to get a way to try to interview this individual before he changes his mind. At the same time, there are going to be FBI agents and NYPD detectives scattered throughout the city where this person lives, works, his associates, colleagues, going through social media, going through all the videotape, and trying to do a timeline as to...
And very time-consuming.
Very time-consuming, but necessary to be able to ascertain exactly what happened from the moment this person rented that vehicle to the moment the attack occurred.
Then, of course, there are all the questions we're going to start asking about, you know, what other things do we need to be concerned about? We are entering quite a time in New York City, the marathon this weekend. We've got Thanksgiving coming up. Certainly want to be sure that there's nothing else coming down the pike.
Absolutely. I believe that this is a lone wolf situation, that this person was off the law enforcement radar, which makes it much more concerning because that's the pattern we're seeing. We have literally hundreds of people under investigation and several thousands of people of interest throughout the country that we are looking at as potential terrorist subjects or attackers. But it's the person that is off the radar that is most concerning, because we get a situation like this where all of a sudden we find out that this individual perhaps had been planning something, perhaps something triggered in his mind that we should have known about, could have known about.
That's a good question,
and didn't do it.
And with your experience, you know, that's the question that comes up. How much information was available? How did we respond to it? And were there any warnings?
Absolutely. And the concern for law enforcement and for security personnel throughout the country is these people are out there. We know they're out there. It's not like they're cells. It's not that they're under investigation or on the radar. They're off the radar, and all of a sudden they just pop up.
Think
like
about
a day
the potential threats, right? You've been involved in this thing. You know it comes in on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. Ernie, it's very scary because unfortunately we're living in a world where this is the preferred armament of the terrorist. You simply go and you rent a truck, a vehicle, and you launch yourself into a crowd of people and take out as many people as possible.
How telling will that rental be? The information that comes from Home Depot is where it was rented.
That's one of the first stops that investigators are going to go to. They're going to pull the video. They're going to see the contract and see what information this individual used to rent the vehicle. If he was actually the person that rented the vehicle. vehicle. Maybe somebody rented the vehicle for him, acting in concert. So all of this information is being pieced together as we speak, and by tomorrow, late afternoon, we're going to have so much more information as to the motive and the background of this individual.
Very busy right now. Manny, stay with us, okay?
We're going to head back out to Linda Schmidt because she is at Bellevue Hospital. We had a little trouble with her camera before, but it seems that things are back up and running. Linda, when we left you, we were just saying that Bellevue is where your sources have told you that the suspect is right now?
Yes, Allison, that's right. Yeah, good evening, first of all, to both of you. This is definitely where the suspect is, 29 years old. He was brought here because, as we have been reporting, he was shot. He was shot in the thigh, so he is being treated here at Bellevue right now. As soon as police are able to, they will be interrogating him to try and figure out what motivated this man. This is something, of course, that we've all been talking about on the air this afternoon. Was he inspired by different terrorist attacks that he has seen around the world? Was he inspired by Nice? Was he inspired by Paris? What was going through this man's mind? But again, the police commissioner confirmed during that news conference at about 5:15 that this appears to be a lone wolf, that he was not acting in concert with anybody else. Now, we are across the street from the entrance of Bellevue Hospital. This is where they have a police barricade. It's going for about a block. They're keeping all of the media on this side. On the back side of the hospital, as I was telling you guys earlier, and I think you have video of this now, that's the emergency room entrance to Bellevue. So that is where the people who survived this, who were injured, this is where they were brought, the 11 people. Now, I'm told, and they continue to say this, that they are in serious condition, but thankfully their injuries are not life-threatening. In addition to that, when you come up on the emergency entrance, by the time we got here, it was about 3:45. There were already police barricades back there at that emergency entrance, and there were ambulances going back and forth. And then when we pulled around to the front, of course, you could see ambulances, fire department trucks, police cars going up First Avenue. You could hear sirens everywhere. So this is where anybody that was injured, this is where they were brought. And of the 8 people who sadly lost their lives today, 6 died on the scene there in Lower Manhattan. 2 were brought here to Bellevue Hospital, and this is where they succumbed to their injuries as well. But we're going to continue to be out here throughout the night, and if there's anything new to report, we'll bring it to you right away. Back to you.
Very much for that, Linda. As we heard from the governor earlier tonight, he was talking about that this is over.
Yes.
Talked about security being very tight, very vigilant. He said there's no threat to the city right now. Also, we did hear from the mayor, and I think this is important. He was saying it's a very painful day in our city, and he asked all New Yorkers to keep the families of the victims and those injured in our prayers. I think that's important to remember. Those of us who report news, these are not just numbers we're talking about. These are real people with families and loved ones, and it's a very sad, sad moment.
Yeah, these are New Yorkers. These are our neighbors that we've lost tonight.
Our people. Dan
Bowens has been in Lower Manhattan throughout the afternoon. We've watched kind of the sun go down there and now into the evening. Dan, earlier you were talking about how it's been a stressful time for a lot of people in this neighborhood. Not sure what's going on, not sure what's happening where they live. What's it like there right now?
Well, Allison and Ernie, it's personal and it's painful. Many of the people who live down here lived through September 11th. We're here then, we're here now. There was a man who actually came up to our camera, our location here just a few minutes ago. He was very upset. He was saying that he couldn't believe what had happened. He was here during the attacks of 9/11. He said, I couldn't ever imagine that something like that would happen here again, but today it has happened again. Mayor Bill de Blasio calling this a, quote, cowardly act of terrorism. We know that the White House has been briefed all throughout the day today, and President Trump just sent out his second tweet in the last 2 hours. This one reads, quote, we must not allow ISIS to return or enter our country after defeating them in the Middle East and elsewhere. Enough. So the president implying there that this was an ISIS attack, even though at this point ISIS or other terrorist organizations have not particularly claimed responsibility for this. The president earlier tweeting, quote, in New York City looks like another attack by a very sick and deranged person. Law enforcement is following this closely, not in the USA, that last part written in all caps. And to set the scene down here for you, this location where this happened here at the West Side and Chambers Street is actually not too far away from the elite public high school in New York City, Stuyvesant High School. It was actually in session today. Some students were walking through this area. Some parents were actually picking up their students. Unclear exactly if any of them were the victims of this attack, people who were struck by that vehicle. We do know that at this point, the investigation on the ground still unfolding, and certainly the investigation to try to figure out where this suspect rented the vehicle, whether or not he rented it from a location in the city, maybe in New Jersey, maybe in Connecticut. Did he rent it at one place and maybe switch it at another place? Who paid for the rental vehicle here? These are some of the questions that law enforcement at this hour still looking for the answers for, to try to find out. Obviously, they think he was working alone, a lone wolf attack, but just to sort of track down every possible detail here. We heard Governor Cuomo say earlier today that New York City is always a potential terror target, but something like this will not defeat New Yorkers. They will not let this beat them. Now, we talked to some people who were out here when all this unfolded about 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago now. Take a listen to what they had to say as this shocking event unfolded.
I was coming out of work. I'm getting ready to cross the street. I hear a big commotion. It was a different commotion. You hear ladies screaming. So when I go and I look, I see a pickup truck, a white pickup truck going down the bike path. For some reason, it drew me to walk that way. When I went that way, I seen two gentlemen expired in the street, in the bike path.
My sister, she was coming out of school, and a man crashed a van into the side of a school bus, and the man got out of the van, and he started firing. He had weapons on him, and he started firing.
I saw in the intersection he's still running with a gun. And then suddenly I heard the gunshots, like 5-6 gunshots. Then we all went down because we didn't know which part the gunshots coming. So we were all scared.
And again, just to reiterate, President Trump once again weighing in on the attack here today, saying, quote, "We must not allow ISIS to return or enter our country after defeating them in the Middle East and elsewhere. Enough." At this point, though, no official confirmation from any of those terrorist organizations or from law enforcement that ISIS or Al-Qaeda or something along those lines is specifically responsible for this attack. Ernie and Allison, back to you.
All right, Dan, thank you very much for that. He was talking about active terrorism. You know, we've heard over and over again, if you see something, you say something. Okay, this happened on a bike lane. It can happen anywhere. And as we've been told over and over again, you have to be vigilant. You have to be careful. Not to be afraid, but you have to be very careful.
Keep your eyes open and just be aware. We're going to send it back down to the newsroom where our political reporter Joe Toohey is right now. Joe, Dan was mentioning some of the things the president's had to say so far. I know you have other reaction from members of the government down in Washington. What are they saying tonight?
Yeah, we're really seeing reaction pour in from both leaders in New York and in Washington. I have a new statement here from Senator Chuck Schumer I want to show you. He's been briefed by the FBI, and he released a statement telling Fox 5, as one of the thousands of New Yorkers who regularly rides on the path where this attack took place, I'm particularly grateful to the NYPD and first responders who work day in and day out to keep us safe, and to those that responded to the scene today. As the investigation unfolds, it's critical that we learn what we can from this incident and do everything we can to prevent this from happening again. The scourge of terrorism is unfortunately still with us, and we must remain as vigilant as ever. So another leader there calling it terrorism, as we've heard from the Department of Homeland Security calling it terrorism, President Trump calling it terrorism, former President Bill Clinton actually weighing in on Twitter as well, almost an adopted New Yorker is home here, saying New Yorkers see this attack for what it is, an attempt to sow fear. We stand together against terror as we grieve for the victims and thank the NYPD. This has also gone global. The mayor of London, who you may recall, and we've been mentioning himself, his city's been the victim of attacks like this with cars and vehicles. He said London stands in grief with the solidarity with New York. So Ernie and Allison, reaction just continuing to pour in from Washington, from New York, from around the globe here in London as this tragic event just continues to unfold.
All right, Joe, thank you so much. You know, so much of that reaction, whether it's coming from here in New York and Washington or even across the pond, so many people just having the same thought. This is, it's horrible, it's frightening, but we must remain who we are. We are New Yorkers, and even if being independent, if being a symbol of international democracy puts us at risk, we cannot let them win. Right,
and right now a lot of people who are tuning in are asking themselves, you know, what happened, especially those people who are down there, trying to piece it all together and see how it affects them. It always becomes an individual thing. Manny Gomez Science is joining us right now. Manny, you know, there are so many questions to ask. And I think one of the things that people ask is, you know, why? Why did this happen? What was the mindset of this person, this suspect that was involved? Where did this originate? You know, we talked about, you know, the internet and how that's a source of homegrown terrorists and so forth. Your experience, tell us what you're thinking.
Well, ISIS in specific, they're subject experts in recruiting people. They average about 50 people a day internationally. And so they have a great product and use social media and their website to recruit people.
50 people a day. 50 people a day. That's mind-boggling.
That is mind-boggling.
So
if you look at it statistically, 50 people a day are recruited internationally from all parts of the world, including the U.S. We have numerous people that have been arrested for trying to travel abroad and fight with Syria and ISIS and Iraq. That being said, so if you add the numbers and the message that ISIS and other terrorist organizations are putting out are basically take to the streets. If you can't come here and fight with us, take to the streets, use by any means necessary whatever weaponry you have. In this case, they're using vehicles. And so that's the message, that's the training, whether they're here in the basement of their homes looking at the website and getting inspired by this social media phenomenon that they're putting out, or whether they actually traveled abroad and were brainwashed and recruited and directed by ISIS. So either way, we have a big problem, which is we have young people from all walks of life being brainwashed and recruited.
Manny, I hate to interrupt you, but just for a moment, we have to go out to Antoine Lewis. He's in Passaic, New Jersey, where police believe that they may have found the suspect's car. Antoine, what can you tell us?
We can tell you that police are right here in the parking lot of this Home Depot. Photojournalist Rich McHugh is going to give you a look at what's going on right now. Police are focusing on this minivan that you're seeing, and it's in the parking lot. Law enforcement sources say that the suspect, Sayfulo Saipo, may have left this vehicle here and then to go on to rent that truck from this Home Depot, believed to have been used in the attack this afternoon. Now, we can tell you that the tags on the minivan are from Florida. Police say that the suspect, Saipo, is also from the Florida area. Was trying to confirm. We're hearing Tampa, we're possibly hearing Tallahassee. We're working to get that information. But on scene right now, you have the Passaic Police, the Passaic Sheriff's Department. We do believe that some of the federal officers are also here. We've seen a number of them there, as well as fire personnel. The parking lot has been cordoned off. Rich, if you can go over just a little bit by the sign, you can still see it's business as usual. People are still coming into the store to do their business and to get things. So it's only from where I'm standing, the left side of the parking lot where these cars are, that people are not being allowed to go into there. But the store is still operating and functional. So again, Rich and I have been here for a better part of about a half hour or so. All efforts right now are on this truck, that minivan that you've been seeing in the back right there. Again, they're moving us back a little bit, but we're bringing you this right now. We'll continue to stay here until they move us back even further. But for right now, this is the very latest, and all of the attention right now from where we are here in Passaic is on that minivan. That's the very latest that we have for you. We're going to send it back inside to you in the studio.
All right, Antoine, thank you so much. We're going to bring back in Manny Gomez. I'm sorry we had to interrupt because Antoine had that breaking news, but your reaction that, you know, they're saying there's a minivan in a parking lot of a Passaic Home Depot in Passaic, New Jersey. The car has Florida tags, they believe, on it, and they believe it may be the minivan that belonged to the person who rented this U-Haul, or this Home Depot truck, rather.
Well, that tells me that they're acting very quickly. Within hours, they've already identified the vehicle. They've identified where this individual rented this vehicle. His license apparently is from Florida. They're going to be FBI agents in Florida, boots on the ground at his home, trying to figure out what his background is in Florida, how he wound up in the New York, New Jersey area. And this is going to be an evolving thing. But obviously, we see that they're moving very quickly and that they're getting a lot dug up in an amazing time.
Well, we've got a great, listen, as a former FBI agent and with the NYPD and so forth, quickly, when something like this happens, and there's been so much work done, and so many of these have been foiled, when something like this happens, I mean, you know, is it considered, you know, a setback, or is it an inspiration to say, no, we're going to move forward, we've done a great job, and now we know exactly what we have to do?
Well, obviously, everybody's disappointed, especially law enforcement. The issue is, Ernie, we have to get it right 100% of the time. They only have to get it right once for a tragedy like this to happen. So they're going to take this incident, this tragedy, they're going to learn from it, and they're going to move forward and prevent other tragedies similar to this, as they prevented numerous other potential attacks on New York City since 9/11. So we take what we can, we learn from it, and we move on. It's an ongoing fight. It's the new norm, unfortunately, and so we're going to carry on.
Yeah, Manny Gomez, we thank you very much for that. Listen, we've been following this story. This is a very personal story to all of us. We are New Yorkers, and we feel the tragedy of this day. Totally unexpected, and we feel, as we've heard from our officials, our prayers are out for those people who have lost their lives, their families, and those
people
injured.
who have died today, 12 plus who have been injured. You know, we also are now able to confirm, or what we've heard from 3 separate sources, the name of the suspect in this case, Seyfulo Saipov. We've heard that earlier today, but 3 sources now telling us that's who they believe the suspect was, a 29-year-old who may have been from Florida. That car in Passaic, New Jersey, that minivan that they believe is connected to him, also having Florida plates.
Well, we have reporters all over the scene. We're going to continue to follow this story throughout the evening. If there's anything coming up, we will break in, of course, and bring you that information. If not, stay tuned for the news at 10 o'clock here on Fox 5. We certainly, feel for the tragedy of this day, and it's one of those difficult stories for all of us to report.
Yeah, for all of you tonight, be safe, and for those who have lost loved ones or those who are injured tonight, our prayers and thoughts go out to you.
I'm Ernie Anastas with Allison Morris. Thanks for joining us.
And thank you so much for joining us right here on News Now for this continuous coverage. We hope that you guys all have a great Halloween, and we will be back tomorrow with News Now with more continuous coverage, of course, and we'll probably be getting more updates throughout the evening here, but that's going to do it for us tonight on News Now. We're going to see you again tomorrow at noon out on the East Coast and 9 o'clock right here Arizona time. Thank you.